Dana's lost her memory and doesn't know who Monte Cristo is. She doesn't even know who she is, understand? What if Monte Cristo takes advantage of the situation?
I have to go, I have to go. I have to go now.
You're not going anywhere. Don't even try it.
Well, Dulce, my little niece, huh? Let's see what you're up to, shall we? But the thing is that I know who you really are.
Sign it. Sign it.
The Juakari operators and others, our saloonists, our mamboga, our barbers, our economy to a large extent depends on you. We cannot allow Kenyans to die because of non-distancing in any sector. So those of you who are carrying out the hair-cutting business in barbershops, in saloons, I am appealing to you today. Ensure that social distancing, fumigation of your working places, masks are used at all times. Just assume that everybody is positive and now deal with that situation. Participation of our citizens in the fight against the disease would be our key success factor.
All right, a warm welcome to you. Thank you very much for keeping it KBC on the 20th day of March of May 2020. It is a warm welcome to have you right here on the show. We are broadcasting live from the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation here in Nairobi, Kenya. My name is Aguko. We have a lot in store for you. On my end of the discussion this morning, I'll be putting into perspective matters legislature and COVID-19. How has the coronavirus affected legislation in the country? Remember, the legislature is one of the arms of government, with the executive taking the front line when it comes to making sure that Kenyans are updated in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic and how it has affected the nation. Well, a lot of issues have arisen because of the pandemic, and one arm of the government has, this arm of the government has come up with so many legislations coming in with legal instruments crucial in the war against the COVID-19. It has questioned the public health prevention, control, and suppression of COVID-19 rules, the 2020 and public health COVID-19 restriction of movement of persons and related measures rules of 2020. We shall be putting this into perspective this morning with a member of parliament discussing how has legislation been affected by the coronavirus. A warm welcome. Stick around for this and much more.
This morning on our COVID-19 updates, we look at Mauritius and Tanzania. Reason being, the reason as to why Mauritius has no active case as of now, even as country continue recording more cases of COVID-19. And Tanzania simply because they still have active cases, but they are contemplating going back to total normalcy. Also on our traffic update, our focus this morning will be on Waiyaki. We're trying to look at the road situation on that specific route.
Good morning, I'm Regina Manyara Gitao, and focusing on news that have been making headlines is that battle lines seem to be drawn in the ruling party Jubilee. And is it too soon to tell? That and so much more coming up in the headlines as we focus on stories that are making headlines in the last 24 hours, including that Kenya has to bear the brunt, or rather the cost of testing Tanzanian truck drivers. That coming up in not too long on the Jim K headlines.
On our roads this morning, our focus being on Waiyaki. We remember that we went back to looking at traffic in the morning hours simply because things are slowly going back to normal. And so, beginning with Waiyaki, I just wanted to start from where at Uthiru Place, coming all the way to the city center. Slight traffic build up on this specific road as you come to the city center. And also the interesting thing is that this is on both lanes. That means the lane that is leaving the estates along Waiyaki Way, as well as the one leaving the CBD coming to the estates and join to this specific route. Traffic beginning to slightly build up, but at least on major parts of this road and this specific area, clearly moving at a really fast pace. Remember, like I told you when you're just beginning, things are slowly going back to normal. So ultimately, this is why we would expect traffic build up in the early morning hour. When the first case was being announced in the country, we would barely spot any traffic gridlock because the advisory that came in is that people need to stay at home and you also have to work at home. So that's why we would barely spot any traffic. But after the reopening of hotels and eateries, sort of looks like every business sector is just trying to see how best they can go back to normalcy. And also this is just why we are spotting much more of the traffic gridlock, at least in the early morning hours. So if you're coming from Uthiru, using Waiyaki Way or coming all the way to Westlands or going to the city center, this again could be the best time for you to do that because there's just a slight snarl up on specific areas, but on major parts of this road, this is Waiyaki Way, really moving at a pretty fast pace. Also just next to Kangemi, again also moving at a really fast pace. Remember that Waiyaki Way also just serves quite a number of estates and also people that come from the outskirts of Nairobi. But as of now, we don't really see vehicles coming from the outskirts of Nairobi, and this is due to the restriction of movement that was extended, especially for Nairobi, people coming into Nairobi or even leaving Nairobi. But as of now, just after past Kangemi, coming to Kianda School, moving at a really fast pace, just on slight specific places where there's a bit of traffic gridlock. And on the junction, this is the James Gishuru Junction, which also leads all the way to Kawangware and Hurlingham. This is one of those places where you'd really expect traffic build-up. I can tell you on this specific junction, but as of now, no traffic at all, moving at a really fast pace. But just slightly away from that, a bit of a traffic snarl, but also moving at a pretty fast pace, and that is on the lane that is coming to the city center. Again, it is just usual for us to spot traffic on the lane that is coming to the city center because of the obvious reason: people going to their workstation, or their businesses, or even any activities any activities on the city in the city center. But on that specific junction, where in other times we will really see traffic build up, as of now, no traffic at all. Even as you branch off through the junction using James Gishuru going to Kawangware, really moving at a fast pace, no traffic at all on that specific route. On major parts of Waiyaki Way this morning, I can tell you there's no traffic, just on some slight specific areas where there's a bit of a traffic snarl. But on major parts of this road, this is Waiyaki Way, moving at a really fast pace. Even in Westlands, where we'd really expect to see traffic gridlock, as of now, there's no traffic at all. Just also next to the Naivas supermarket, also one of those places where there's normally heavy traffic build-up because, again, it is next to Naivas supermarket. It is also a bus terminus place next to Delta, one of those places where a bus terminus where we'd expect to see traffic build up. As of now, no traffic at all, moving at a fast pace. Also remember that on this Westlands roundabout, it's again one of those roundabouts that was just under reconstruction to ensure easy movement of vehicles as well as easy movement of pedestrians. So also I may want to attribute the lack of traffic this morning again to probably reasons such as that. And this is why also most of the roads around the city center are being reconstructed in terms of ensuring that we have good footbridges, in terms of ensuring the road are passable, just to ease on the traffic congestions on these major roads around the city center. So again, if you're coming from Westlands, coming to the city center using Waiyaki Way, this is again the best time for you to do that. There's no traffic at all on Waiyaki Way. This is unlike what we were really spotting in along Outer Ring Road yesterday and even along Mombasa Road on Monday, because on those specific roads we were really spotting more of the traffic gridlock, especially in this early morning hour. But as of now, along Waiyaki Way, no traffic at all, moving at a really fast pace on this specific road. Even along Westlands roundabout, moving at a really fast pace. Also next to the National Museum, one of those places where we would see traffic snarl up as it branches off to Uhuru Highway. Again, also no traffic, moving really, really fast. But just as you move away from that place, coming next to the University roundabout, that's just where traffic begins to slightly build up. Remember, also people coming from Waiyaki, where this is one of the roundabout they use as you come to the city center. So just around the roundabout, that's where traffic begins to slightly build up, but also it's a manageable kind of traffic. So in the next link up segment, for those coming from Waiyaki, where I'll be trying to look at some alternative routes for you, especially as you use this roundabout coming to the city center.
Minutes past 7 o'clock. Remember, we are live on Facebook, on our website, and on YouTube. The website is at www.kbc.co.ke. Even as we continue with this morning show and our conversations and what we have in store for you, be part of the conversation. We appreciate your feedback at Aguko, at Ray Manyara, and at Doreen Arange. Remember, the hashtag is Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. In the headlines starts now. We'll be taking a look at what is in our different dailies, the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation, the People's Daily, and the Star, to keep you updated in matters affecting the nation and the world at large. Well, and I will start with the Daily Nation, with the Standard rather. And on the front page of the Standard newspaper, we have a splash on the current political stand in ODM. Raila not signing Uhuru power deal. That is the splash in the headline there. A legal dilemma prevents ODM from entering a coalition agreement with Jubilee. Raila is not keen on a formal pact that co-opts him in government to avoid the backlash of incumbency should he vie for the presidency in 2022. There is an image of him, Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, and towards the bottom right, we have an image of ODM chairman, that is Honorable John Mbadi. And what he says, and it is quoted there, we are not entering into a coalition now. What we are focusing on is continuing with the cooperation we have with the president through the handshake. We have agreed in principle to use the existing cooperation to support the development agenda. Raila not signing Uhuru power deal. Now let me just get a glimpse of this story inside the newspaper, and so that we can be able to see what the story is all about. Now, in the newspaper of the same story, we have one on how Raila is not planning to come into the power deal with Honorable Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta as of now. Remember, the party cannot be able to sign the coalition agreement with Jubilee Party because of legal issues that might rise from that. Why Raila Party won't sign coalition deal with Jubilee? The view within Odinga's camp is that 2018 handshake with Uhuru is enough. ODM fears joining ruling team will force it to lose minority leader's position in parliament. And picture there we have President Uhuru Kenyatta on the left and ODM leader Raila Odinga at a past function. The Chama Chamashinani of former Bomet Governor Isaac Ruto is finalizing a coalition deal with Jubilee together with others. And according to an Article 108 of the Constitution, any more by ODM to sign a deal with Jubilee will amount to it losing its claim as the minority party by virtue of being the second largest political party. Why Raila Party won't sign coalition deal with Jubilee?
Now, in the copy of the Daily Nation this morning, we have a similar story that has been highlighted there, all the way with that page there with ousted Senator there, Murkomen, taking the front page there, the ultimate betrayal. Now, proceeding on to page 2. DP's headache in top seat race as forces at work to scuttle the bid. Now, Uhuru's working relationship with KANU and the handshake seem to have denied Ruto the numbers that he has seemingly been enjoying. That's the story that has been captured on page 3 of the Daily Nation. And the same story about what is happening in the political scene. We have a splash there on the front page of the Star Raila's sweet revenge. Since 2013, Ruto has wounded the ODM leader with his sarcastic taunts, ridiculed him, and even painted him as a political conman unfit for the country's top job. We continue just to get a sneak peek of what that article is all about. Just reading an excerpt of that particular article this morning. Sweet revenge on Ruto. Raila's sweet revenge on Ruto. Now, as Raila licked his political wounds, smarting from 2 election defeats in which Ruto was a key player, the DP marketed himself as President Uhuru Kenyatta's heir apparent, often saying that he was only a heartbeat away from State House. But in just 2 years, after the handshake, Raila, in a profound political tact, has turned the tables on Ruto. Has he? What do you think? Well, our reporter also went on ground and filed a comprehensive story about what is happening in the political scene. Now, given that the rifts between the warring factions within the ruling Jubilee Party are widening as rival groups trade accusations and counter-accusations. This comes as one faction protested the ouster of their colleagues in the Senate leadership and mooted censure of some MPs at the National Assembly. Now claiming that the top move is aimed at intimidating those who hold a divergent opinion. Safin Auma Cheng has that particular report.
The ouster of Senators Kipchumba Murkomen and Susan Kihika from their positions of Majority Leader and Chief Whip respectively has touched off another round of political warfare. A section of Jubilee MPs, including Kikuyu MP Kimani Ichung'wah, Mathira lawmaker Rigathi Gachagua, and their Dagoretti South counterpart John Kiarie, now terming it an attempt to chastise persons holding contrary opinion in the ruling outfit. The group that has openly declared its allegiance to the Deputy President William Ruto is, however, adamant that the current onslaught will not yield much, as it will not bend their resolve on the future of the country.
I am not distracted from my work. I will continue to work both as chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee and also as member of Parliament for Kikuyu, because I was elected by the people of Kikuyu to serve them, and I will continue to serve them in whatever capacity I can.
Today, Senator Kihika Nakuru is a very popular leader because of the way she was treated unfairly. And they know the role she played in putting this government into power. Then you come and hound out of office for no good reason. The people are with her 100%.
But amid this defiance, Kirinyaga Governor Anne Mumbi Waiguru is telling off the group that has refused to toe the party line. While castigating their conduct, the outspoken county chief urges them to leave the party and seek a fresh mandate from the electorate for openly betraying the ideals of the President Uhuru Kenyatta-led outfit.
Jubilee Party is finally cracking the whip to ensure that there is party discipline. And it is very dangerous when you have a party that doesn't have discipline.
According to Waiguru, loyalty to the party leader is not an option.
The party is not intimidating anybody. All we have said is that we need to adhere to our party constitution and our code of conduct. Everybody signed a code of conduct before they got their nomination certificate.
For Channel 1 News, I'm Safin Aching Ouma.
Now, still sticking with matters politics this morning, the caption on the People's Daily, Ruto's Mount Kenya MPs develop cold feet, where it says that pro-DP politicians said to be reaching out to those in President's camp in what appears to be a change of tune in Uhuru's favor. Continues to say that after making what was seen as significant inroads into President Uhuru Kenyatta's Mount Kenya political base, tables are fast turning on DP William Ruto, whose allies in the region seem to have developed cold feet. And this is why. This follows the ongoing brutal purge on the DP's allies from key positions in the Senate and National Assembly, a move that has sent shockwaves in Ruto's camp, with some of his supporters now seeking to return to the president's corner. So what next for the deputy president? This is something that only time will tell. Now, still on matters politics, there's also an interesting story. Kindiki Kindiki Speaker post ouster begins as Kangata tables motion. Now, the process of removing Senate Deputy Speaker Kindiki Kithure, who has been pictured in the paper, started in earnest yesterday after the newly elected Majority Whip Irungu Kangata, who took over from Susan Kihika. So after the newly elected Majority Whip Irungu Kangata tabled the motion to eject him from the coveted post over alleged disloyalty to President Uhuru Kenyatta. So the only reason as to why he tabled this motion is because he thinks he is disloyal to the president.
Now, 51 senators gang up to pick out the man that is on the front page here, and I'll be discussing that in a bit.
Now, just keeping also tabs on that particular story, we have a version of it captured on the Daily Nation this morning. And the title goes by, Kangata seeks to oust Kindiki as Deputy Speaker. Now, Mr. Kangata did not provide the grounds he will rely on to impeach the Deputy Speaker, though. And this suggests that it is that the intended removal is part of the scheme by President Uhuru Kenyatta to purge politicians perceived to be close to Deputy President William Ruto. Now, a total of 45 senators are required to successfully remove the Speaker or his deputy from office. Mr. Kangata had annexed the notice a list of 48 lawmakers who support the ouster. The holders of the two offices are state officers, and they can only be removed on ground of performance or incompetence and not party politics. Over to you, Ram.
And as I was saying earlier, Jubilee's civil war intensified yesterday after 51 senators from NASA and the ruling party endorsed a notice for the removal of Senator Kithure Kindiki as the Deputy Speaker of the Senate. Last week, Kipchumba Murkomen and Susan Kihika were replaced as Majority Leader and Whip, respectively, at a meeting chaired by President Kenyatta. Now, let me dispense of this inside the Standard. And the headline there is, Kindiki on verge of ouster from House post as 51 MPs gang up. The Senate Majority Whip, Irungu Kangata, says this, and I quote, I beg to move that this House resolves to remove from office of the Deputy Speaker of Senate, end of quote. It was not a question of if, but how many members President's wing could marshal to kick out the Deputy Speaker. Jubilee says Kindiki's failure to attend State House meeting amounted to gross insubordination.
Senate Deputy Speaker there, Professor Kindiki Kithure, that hangs in the balance will be decided on Thursday. How about a detailed report on that by reporter Gladys Mungai?
Intrigues within the ruling Jubilee Party continued at the Senate on Tuesday, with Majority Whip Irungu Kangata moving a notice of motion seeking Deputy Speaker in Tharaka Nithi Senator Kithure Kindiki's ouster.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House Senate resolves that Senator Professor Kithure Kindiki be removed from the office of the Deputy Speaker of the Senate.
The House said to consider the motion on Thursday amid claims that it is part of a wider plan to have members speak in one voice. The move coming just a week after Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen and Nakuru Senator Susan Kihika were replaced as Senate Majority Leader and Senate Whip respectively. Senator Kindiki led last Tuesday's sitting, where senators discussed at length the ouster of the two leaders. The newly installed Majority Whip will require at least 44 senators to vote in support of Kindiki's removal. The process of removal of a speaker or his deputy is outlined in Article 104, subsection 2 of the Constitution, which provides that the office of the deputy speaker shall become vacant when the new House of Parliament meets after an election, if the relevant House resolves to oust them by resolution supported by the votes of at least 2/3 of its members, or if the office holder resigns from office in a letter addressed to the relevant House. Rumors remain rife that a purge targeting those who have failed to toe the party line in endorsing critical decision will then move to the National Assembly, with Majority Leader, Majority Whip and heads of committees targeted in the political game plan. For Channel 1 News, I'm Gladys Mongai.
Now moving to matters coronavirus this morning. Again, on the front page, there's also a story in regards to that, where corona takes toll on Kenyan workers. It continues to say that new government survey says 9 of every 10 employees pushed out by pandemic are unsure of when they will resume duty, as a quarter unable to pay rent in April. We'll be looking at how that story has been fleshed out in page 4 and 5. But you also have the numbers where we stand as of now, as a country. This is 963 confirmed COVID-19 cases, with 358 recovered and still at 50 deaths. And this is after 51 tested positive in the last 24 hours, and a total sample of tested cases so far stands at 46,984 sample tested since the first case was reported here in the country. So let's see how this story on corona has been written, well written in the paper this morning concerning matters to do with COVID-19, and how those employees that actually have had to part way with half salaries might be doing, and how they are feeling about this whole issue. So this is the caption this morning. The survey report shows that 91% of Kenyans unsure of job future. And this is after a significant number of people had to lose their job because of this pandemic, where 9 of every 10 Kenyans who are out of employment because of COVID-19 pandemic disruptions are not certain when and if they will resume work. This is what a new survey shows, and findings by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, KNBS, established that those unsure of their future comprise of 91.2% compared to 3.9% who are optimistic of returning to work in 1 to 3 months, while 2.8% expect the layoffs to last 3 to 6 months. So this is how this disease really affected people in the employment sector. There's also another caption still on matters COVID-19 that shows thousands could die of COVID-19 survey reveals. And also this is a survey that was done by the National Bureau of Statistics that shows that 17% of households have persons with pre-existing health conditions. And this is why thousands could die of this disease.
Of the Standard newspaper, we have a story on that: many women losing jobs, but more men dying of COVID-19. Now, let me get to that story on how the COVID-19 is affecting the employment sector and the job sector. More women out of jobs as corona pushes unemployment to 4 million. A survey was done, and the survey says most of them living in occupations that easily buckled under the weight of the pandemic. Over a third of households had trouble paying their rent on time. The statistics, the numbers are there, written with 91.2% of the workers who are not sure when they will return to their jobs. Well, on the same breath of the COVID-19, remember there was an update yesterday that was given by the Ministry of Health. Border in the red as 51 more tests positive for virus. Border in the red as 51 more test positive for virus. A total of 214 persons have tested positive for the virus at the Kenya-Tanzania border, with 182 being foreigners. Kenya has made it mandatory for truck drivers, whether Kenyans or foreigners, to be tested for the virus. The Minister of Health said used statistics to demonstrate the danger lurking along the Kenya-Tanzania border, even as the country records 51 new cases of the coronavirus.
Now, still keeping up with the global pandemic that still has all governments seeking to find a cure. We have a story there captured in the Daily Nation is that Tanzania and Kenya mistrust and trade war fueled by COVID-19. Now, Uhuru Magufuli met in July and agreed to improve relations. However, the leaders of the two countries have in the last few years ended the disputes or conveniently ignored them. Now, coronavirus has started the pot awakening the trade jobs between the East African community members with the largest economies. From sugar, milk, eggs, confectionery, wheat and other goods. Kenya and Tanzania have squared it out through roadblocks, which have ended up at the EAC Secretariat in Arusha. That's the story there. And just look at the numbers in terms of trade, yeah? Is that 33.61 billion value of goods exported to Tanzania in the last year, according to officials in the two countries, while 34.8 billion value of goods Tanzanian business imported from Kenya in 2016. Story captured in the Daily Nation, looking at the business aspect. Now, also, that particular story has been highlighted in the Star this morning. And in particular, other than just talking about the issue or rather the stress in relations, it also highlights that Kenya bears the cost of testing Tanzanian truckers. Now, the country has 51 new COVID cases, bringing the total to 963, as my colleague Doreen mentioned, is that Kenya is also now incurring the extra cost to test Tanzanian truckers at border entry points, says Health CS Mutahi Kagwe, and that was yesterday. This continues just putting strain between Kenya and Tanzania, where on Monday, the Tanzanian official says no vehicle from Kenya will be allowed to enter their country. They say that the goods from the northern neighbor will be offloaded at the border for collection by their respective owners. How about we have a detailed report about what is happening or what is putting a strain as far as COVID is concerned between these two members of the East African community.
It is a diplomatic tiff that has threatened the cordial relations between the two East African neighbors, a row over divergent measures taken by Kenya and Tanzania, which had seen the latter threaten to institute austerity measures. Kenya's ambassador to Tanzania, Dan Kazungu, will call for calm amid brewing mistrust between people from the two countries.
Na hata kama una shida unafanya nini? Unakaa na wenzako. Mnakaa mnajadili tuje tufanyeje. Tukijua adui wetu sisi si Mtanzania, si Mrundi, si Mrwanda, si Uganda, si Msomali, si Ethiopia. Adui wetu sisi ni Kirusi. Nilifuta hili ambalo linakuja kutuharibia.
Kazungu saying the measures were not in any way targeted at Tanzanians, adding that similar measures have been introduced along Kenyan borders with other East African neighbors. And as Kazungu was speaking inside Tanzania's territory, East African Community and Regional Development Cabinet Secretary Aden Mohammed will announce in Nairobi that trade relations between the two neighbors remain healthy.
And we are aware that there are a few trucks of Kenyan registration that have been denied access and entry into Tanzania, but we have not stopped processing vehicles coming from Tanzania into Kenya, as I've said earlier on. So those isolated cases, and we are talking about 5 to 7 vehicles that have been slowed down. They are actually on the Tanzanian side, but they haven't been allowed to proceed. So we are dealing with some of these isolated cases.
The assurance coming after 6 trucks ferrying goods were denied access to Tanzania through the Isibania border on Tuesday afternoon, despite the drivers having tested negative for coronavirus.
Sasa leo asubuhi nilipokuja kuchukua vipimo ikaonekana niko negative. Nikapewa barua na ofisa wa hospitali wa Port. Nikataka kuchukua gari yangu nivuke niende Tanzania, nikakatazwa.
The two states should sit together in the spirit of EAC so that they can harmonize the fight against COVID-19. Because currently, as things stand, it means that there is a stalemate in the international trade.
This is a section of leaders from Kenya accused Tanzanian authorities of harassing their constituents.
Na bwana ACC hao wazee wa nyumba 10 ningeomba sababu wana patrol mpakani. Tafutia uniform ili waonekane. Tusije wakaonekana kama ni wakora. Hiyo ni shida nyingine. Unajua Watanzania wamepewa uniform. Wakienda pale kujaribu kusaidiana na askari wanaonekana kama wakora.
Rift Valley Regional Coordinator George Natembea, in the company of other government officials, conducting a fact-finding mission that will take them to Angata Barakoi along the Kenya-Tanzania common border.
Kwa sababu unajua Wakenya wa Tanzania ni kitu moja, sio? Hatutaki ugomvi sisi.
Natembea urging leaders from the two nations to avoid utterances that could strain bilateral relations, saying relations between the two nations remain cordial, saying the measures announced by the Kenyan government were meant to cushion nationals of the two neighboring countries from the adverse effects of the coronavirus.
How a public health issue can become a trade issue is what puzzles me, because we are dealing with a public health issue ambayo ina concern Kenya na Tanzania. Sio mambo ya trade between Kenya and Tanzania, hapana. So lazima watu wetu waendelee kufanya biashara, lazima tuendelee kutafuta mali, lazima kuendelea kuimprove our living standards in both countries, and lazima as government officials on the ground, jukumu letu sio kukula mori, jukumu letu ni kuaddress problems ambazo ziko pale, kuhakikisha kwamba biashara kati ya Kenya na Tanzania inaendelea bila kuathiriwa na ugonjwa wa corona.
For Channel 1 News, I'm Sarafina Robi.
But now, how will this affect Kenya? You may wonder, is this going to affect the diplomatic relations between Kenya and Tanzania? Well, let me just give you just a sneak peek on how this border standoff may cause some crisis. On this, we have why border standoff may cause food crisis. Kenya imports nearly 1/3 of essential supplies from next-door neighbors. Now, for Kenya and Tanzania, the trade war is a zero-sum game. Kenya stands to lose 33.8 billion shillings worth of export earning should the flow of cargo to Tanzania be curtailed. Now, Tanzania, on the other hand, exported goods worth 27.7 billion shillings to Kenya last year. In total, Kenya earned 140.4 billion shillings from the commodities it exported to the 5 EA members states, which also include South Sudan, Rwanda, and Burundi. In return, the country imports food value at 67 billion shillings. So this is how this country will be affected in terms of this. Why border standoff may cause food crisis?
This morning on the People's Daily, and just let's see how that has been covered in regards to how Kenya will be affected with this TIF. So 65 billion Kenyan shillings trade at stake in neighbors TIF, where the current Kenya-Tanzania TIF over closure of borders is set to disrupt an annual bilateral trade worth 65 billion shillings. As the border row between the two countries ensues, local consumers are said to fork out more cash to buy food, since Kenya imports more agricultural produce from her neighbor. So this is just how Kenyan traders and Kenyans might have to suffer from this TIF. Now, away from matters the TIF between the two countries, let's move to the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, where budget increased by 53 billion shillings to cater for pandemic in the city, and the National Treasury has revised its budget estimates by 53.7 billion shillings in the 2020-2021 financial year to include economic stimulus package during the COVID-19 crisis, with 26.4 billion shillings allocated to the Nairobi Metropolitan Service that has been cash-strapped since it was established. Remember, there was ongoing wars between the NMS and the county government, but according to a letter addressed to National Assembly by the National Treasury, the amended funds will be used as the economic stimulus package for the city.
Now, still keeping up with what is happening in the Nairobi County is that broke Governor Sonko seeks access to frozen bank accounts. That's a story that has been captured for you in the Star this morning. Broke Governor Sonko seeks access to frozen bank accounts. The Nairobi County Chief wants orders issued by Judge Kimaro on February the 6th set aside. He says that he's unable to buy groceries and support his family after his bank accounts were frozen. That's through his lawyer there, Harrison Kenyanjui. He wants orders issued on the 6th set aside to enable him receive his salary. Highlighted there is that the funds were deposited in 6 accounts at Equity Bank, 3 at Diamond Trust Bank, and another at the Cooperative Bank of Kenya. The order was granted after the Assets and Recovery Agency cited suspicious cash deposits and withdrawals between 2017 and 2019. In one account highlighted that had 4.2 million, there were 35 deposits and withdrawals totaling 45 million shillings between July 2017 and March 2019. The embattled governor of Nairobi County claiming that he is broke and that the court has to ease up so that he can continue providing for his family. Now, away from matters politics as well as legislation, just looking at stories that continue making headlines in the papers today, I want to focus on the issue of floods, the floods update with a story here. Teen killed and another injured by hippos in Masinga Dam. Now, this is after the waters have had risen and hippos from Masinga Dam have killed a boy and mauled another after moving to the banks following an extreme flooding. One of the boys, 17, was mauled to death by a hippo in Morangan Dogo village when he went to fetch water for the family at around 3 p.m. on Sunday. Now, how about we have a detailed report about what is happening in the floods, given that the Meteorological Department has given a report that we expect heavy showers in the course of the next 2 months or so. Here's a report by our reporter there, just looking at the issues of floods. That is Caroline Kamau.
Though some parts of the country have started to report drier spells, the effects of the rains that have been pounding various parts of the country continue to be felt. 12 families in Mitahata Githunguri sub-county now grappling with the effects of the rainwaters that have affected thousands in the country. After reporting the matter and getting no assistance from authorities, they collectively tried to dig up trenches and drain the waters from their lands. Pauline Wanje, a resident, say they have never witnessed such levels of water that have also killed their livestock.
Maji imeingia kwa manyumba. Wakikaa kwa fiti zinaenda chini. Kama nguruwe zimekufa kama nguruwe 10. Kama ni watoto, maji kwa fenye maji imetapakaa haiendi, kuna umbu mingi sana. Na hiyo umbu inaweza leta magonjwa kama malaria. Kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali na especially hata Mheshimiwa Wanyoro, juu hii ni mambo ya county government. Hakuna pahali wanaweza hamia. Juu hapa ni pahali wazazi wamewalelea na wamekuwa wakiwa hapa na familia zao. Kwa hivyo tunaomba hawa viongozi at least wajitolee, wakuje wasikane na hizi familia wasaidie.
Residents say they fear contracting waterborne diseases, noting that a cemetery nearby is also covered by flood waters. And residents from Nyataragi village in Kiambu are living in fear of losing their homes after a landowner sold his land to a mining investor whose activities on the land has seen the road cut off while their homes are at risk of collapse. Residents say despite submitting their reservations to relevant authorities on the risk the activities of the investor pose to their homes, he has continued unabated.
Kule kwangu siwezi kukaa kwa sababu nyumba imekwenda, na mimi nasema kitu sio kama Murang'a tunajua ni kuporomoka, lakini hapa sio kuporomoka. Hii ni watu wakafanya kazi, ule mwenye contract na wene mshamba ndio wamesababisha hii, na wanajua, wanaona.
They're now calling on the national government to intervene and compel the landowner and investor to stop mining activities on the land and rehabilitate the road that has now been destroyed. Caroline Kawan reporting for Channel 1 News.
Now let me head over to the lake, and specifically one lake, Lake Victoria here, and how there has been havoc that has reigned in that region of around the Lake Victoria. We have a story there, nowhere to hide from Victoria's angry water. The lake is now following villagers to the camps where they sought shelter after losing their homes. Wading through the murky waters, we have one lady, Pamela Awur, who struggled to balance her shivering 6-month-old baby on her left arm and a heavy bucket on her right. The flood victims endless the flood victims endless woes. She picked her way slowly through the water, tentatively putting each foot forward to feel the ground before taking the next step. This is Lake Victoria that has been able to relocate thousands of people from their villages out of their homes. That is the story there. And this lady says, and I quote, "I do not know where to go anymore. All I can do is walk around the village to find somewhere safe for me and my children until the waters go back to the lake." Now, moving on, we have yet another story right here in Kenya. This has been trending on Twitter on the IEBC. Well, 2017 poll data errors add to the blunders of tainted IEBC. Electoral Commission pulled down 767-page document from its website just hours after uploading it. The Electoral Commission has hurriedly pulled down error-laden results of the August 2017 general election following the backlash. Publication of winners different from those announced is one of the most prominent and confusing inconsistencies. And another conspicuous error is the allocation of candidates to parties they are not registered to, and the declaration of certain candidates as independent, yet they belong to registered political parties.
Earlier to now some of the issues that are also affecting us as a country. This is in regards to the locust issue. And now the Food and Agriculture Organization say the wave of locust attack may have been averted, where it continues to say that another wave of destructive locust invasion situation projected for Kenya and other East African nations may be averted, according to a recent report by the Food and Agriculture Organization. So the DG there said there has been significant gains made in the fight against desert locust upsurge in East Africa and Yemen. And he also continues to say that FAO is already working closely with local and national government and partners, supporting surveillance and control operations and initiating efforts to safeguard livelihoods and assist in the longer-term recovery and resilience of those affected. So that's that in regards to matters locust and how they're affecting us as a country. There's also an interesting one here. Managers seized over plastic bags. DCI officers from Nairobi have arrested 3 managers of a Changamwe-based company for illegally manufacturing plastic carrier bags. Remember, these plastic bags were banned in the country because of the kind of environmental hazards that they were causing. So the Rhino Packaging Company's supervisor and 2 production managers were cornered at the factory on Tuesday afternoon while they were allegedly in the process of manufacturing the banned plastic bags. So we'll see their fate as we continue to looking at this story and how it will unfold in terms of these plastic bags and how these managers are manufacturing them. There's also an interesting story which I saw and how youths are becoming innovative during this pandemic time. This is an interesting one. Youth develops learning app as reopening dates are uncertain, where they say necessity is the mother of invention. And as the world continues to grapple with COVID pandemic, Daniel Kuria, a 25-year-old aeronautical engineer, has developed an education application where learners can get learning materials as they await the reopening of the school. Detail of that story on this specific paper.
Now, crossing over to matters business is that Corona renders half women workforce in Kenya idle. That is according to a report by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Now, the survey on the social economic impact of COVID-19 on households Wave 1, unveiled yesterday by the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Okur Yatani, shows that 43.2% of active labor force was rendered economically inactive by the virus, with women the most affected. Now, FKE CEO Jacqueline Mugo revealed that companies continue to write to the Labor Ministry indicating their plans to lay off. Now, this include 20 members of FKE. Now, the report also looked at health, education and transport besides labor and housing. Our reporter Brian Kimani went further to tabulate on the issue on how COVID-19 has affected issues of revenue collection, and it shows that this is likely to drop by close to 500 billion shillings due to the economic slowdown, and that As of March this year, KRA is facing a collection shortfall of 212 billion shillings, which is expected to widen and end by the end of the current financial year. Remember, the budget presentation is set for the next 2 weeks. That is on June 11th there. How about you look at details on how far COVID-19 has affected the economy as we know it?
A slowdown in business activity as a result of the COVID-19 induced trade and travel restrictions is expected to add more pressure on the Kenya Revenue Authority at a time when the country is facing mounting expenditure squeeze. The shortfall has been caused by reduced tax collection from workers and businesses. As of March this year, tax and appropriation in aid revenue stood at 1.33 trillion shillings, falling short of a 2019-2020 financial year 9-month target by 211 billion shillings.
In the next 3 years, our trajectory was showing that, we'll have near zero budget deficit. That was our desired point. And we are determined to go along that route because in the interest of this country, that we reduce, that we manage our own expenditure based on our own solutions, based on our revenue. But then unfortunately, as we embarked on this, now we've been hit by this shock. Never planned for, never anticipated in any way, and therefore all the parameters and the assumptions that we put in place are now going to change. And it's on this basis that we expect low revenue from the areas that I've already cited earlier.
Treasury CS Ukuru Yatani says the drop is likely to be worse in the coming days. The below target tax collections are also expected to drop further in the coming days after the government lowered various taxes to cushion Kenyans against negative impact of the coronavirus. President Uhuru Kenyatta assented to the Tax Law Amendments Bill 2020. The law exempts those earning less than 28,000 shillings from paying income tax, while those earning above these will benefit from pay-as-you-earn tax reduction of between 30 and 25%.
The activities within our own economy have seriously slowed down. Some actually grounded to a halt. If you look at tourism, the hotel industry, the general service industry, air transport, general transport has actually gone down. Then that means we are going to have less revenue, actually quite drastic drop in the revenue.
Speaking when he released a survey on the socio-economic impact of COVID-19 on Kenyan households, the Treasury CS has said Kenya is mulling over renegotiating its loan terms with lenders.
We are not very certain yet whether we are going to go for it because the accompanying conditions are a bit tough because we will not be expected to borrow during this period. And at the same time, we are holders of some of the loans which will not actually ideally be the amounts that they are going to give concession for. So we are studying, we are not saying no, but we are studying and making sure that we tailor to our own convenience.
According to the survey, 21.5% of households in Kenya were unable to pay house rent in the month of April due to job losses. The report further says there has been a 51.7% increase in the cost of transport in the same period. O'Brien Kiman for Channel 1 Business.
All right, thank you very much. That is a story by the one and only O'Brien Kimani. Now, taking a look at how it has affected the economy, this COVID-19 pandemic, Kenya risks losing 4.2 trillion shillings as pandemic eats into economy. Now, the country's recovery hinged on how fast it will rebound from the effects of COVID-19. The COVID-19 health crisis will cost Kenya 4.2 trillion shillings cumulatively over the next 3 years if recovery is slow. But now, we have a low output because currently with 2020, the GDP growth rate scaled down to 0.8%. The value of 2019 GDP per capita is set to dip from 204,629 to 201,826. Remember, the Kenya Revenue Authority collected 292 billion in corporation income taxes in 2018-2019 and had a projection of 340.9 billion shillings in 2019-2020 might end up collecting 308 billion in 2020-2021. Remember, this is the effect of the coronavirus on the economy. Tax income has already been reduced by relief measures implemented by the Treasury.
About the effects of the disease to the economy, there's still more effects to the vulnerable groups here in the country of the same disease, and puzzle of corona billions as vulnerable groups cry foul, where questions have emerged over the use of funds set aside to cushion vulnerable groups from the economic pangs of COVID-19 amid claims of 230 million shillings budgetary increment. In a memo to the National Assembly Budget and Appropriations Committee, more than 100 experts have highlighted glaring inconsistencies, including the allocation of funds toward the National Safety Net program. So even as this money is being released to help protect the vulnerable persons, it looks like it's not really quite reaching them. Now, there's also an interesting one this morning where herb farmers take heat amid COVID-19 pandemic, and for many farmers in Kenya, for many farmers in Kenya, a bout of prolonged rain and flooding as experienced since March can wipe out a whole season of crops. But for the herb grower, heavy rains often means year of solid profit. So even as the floods and COVID-19 continue to affect farmers at large, it looks like for the herb farmers, this is a reprieve for them. And also new dawn for maize sector as Munya unveiled radical reforms, where the Agriculture CS is expected to explain the planned merger of NCPB Strategic Food Reserve in Nairobi today, which is going to at least help the maize farmers in the country.
Looking at other stories just that have made headlines is interesting from the courts is that a man convicted of defiling neighbor's daughter loses appeal. Now, a man who drilled a hole into his neighbor's house, defiled a 10-year-old girl, will continue to serve his 30-year jail term after he lost the appeal. Jackson Mutembei was sentenced in 2018 after the court found him guilty of committing the offense in Meru. He appealed against the decision, but Justice David Majanja ruled that he was satisfied that the prosecution approved every element of the offense, and he affirmed the conviction. Quoted there is that from the record, the accused repeatedly defiled the complainant. In the circumstances, I find the accused deserves a deterrent sentence. The court is alive to the emerging jurisprudence in the respect of mandatory sentences. Now, Mutembe, when he was giving his appeal, he said that he did not, the brother, one of the complainant brother who testified said that he knew Mutembe. He explained that the accused used to come at night while their father was away and sleep in his sister's room, in quotes, on top of her. He told the court that he did not tell anyone because he feared a beating. The neighbor said on December 1st, 2018, the girl had told her that Mutembe had sexually assaulted her. Indeed, justice, if I can give my opinion, that has been served. Still to other stories in the counties that Kisii parents take girls for FGM in pretext of ear piercing, says Lobby. Now, the practice has moved from cultural celebration to attitudes and mindsets governed by myths. However, according to a report, and speaking during a Facebook Live session on the end of FGM show, Young Women Democrats lead director Enashas Nyaramba said mothers take children as young as 3 months for circumcision. When they come home, the girl will be taking antibiotics and the father of the child may think it's for the year, but it is meant for the healing process of the exercise. She said that the parents are changing the trends and cutting deals with medical professionals to perform the cut in April and August instead of December. The medics are paid between 500 shillings and 5,000 shillings for the cut. Detailed story about that old dated tradition there that is still ongoing in Kisii, where parents choose to take their children as old as 3 months for FGM. My director says that that's a story we need to follow up on. Indeed, for a person who is forward thinking, I tend to think, yes, African culture, we need to know what to take up into the future and what to let go, as we call them retrogressive cultural practices. A 3-month-old baby. Anyway, that's that.
Very sad indeed. It can be disturbing, but now moving on to the courts. Family seeks justice as police car hits and kills Kinango chief. The family of an assistant chief killed in a tragic accident in Kinango on Sunday is demanding justice of his sudden death as doubts grow whether his alleged killer will be arraigned. That story is also highlighted there, happening in Kwale County. In other counties, quickly, let's head over to Nakuru County. Insurance firm ordered to pay 65 million shillings. There's a high court in Nakuru that has ordered an insurance company to pay a packaging and printing firm 65 million in claims arising from a fire incident. Nakuru Polyplast Company Limited had sued Mayfair Insurance Company in 2017 for failure to pay after its property valued at 64,850,000 was consumed by fire in 2016. In Kisumu County, man destroys church wall, arraigned. A 76-year-old man has been charged for maliciously damaging a wall and gate belonging to a Seventh-day Adventist church worth 2.9 million shillings. The man has been arraigned in court. Now, quickly, heading over to Makueni County, where we have leaders pour praise on departed Member of Parliament. Local leaders have eulogized former Makueni Member of Parliament Peter Kielu as a diligent leader. Makueni Governor Kivutha Kibwana described his former fierce political competitor, who died yesterday at a Nairobi hospital, as dedicated. Moving on quickly to Kakamega County, missing saloonist found dead. Police are investigating the killing of a 36-year-old woman whose body was found at the county's General Hospital mortuary. Elizabeth Kezia, pictured above.
Still sticking with the counties, civil society seeks help for Kisii elderly, where a civil society organization official has urged Kisii County government to support the elderly with foodstuffs to mitigate impact of COVID. So that is in Kisii County. There's also one in another story in Bungoma County, where a mother, sons on the run after keen murder, and police in Bungoma are pursuing a mother and her 2 sons suspected to have hacked their father to death on Monday. And according to Area Chief John Mwanjam, he says that the deceased returned home drunk and quarreled with the wife before the family members hacked him to death using a machete. So away from those 2 counties, coming to Kiambu County, and Nyoro vows to end rot in Planning Department, that is in Kiambu County, where Kiambu Governor James Nyoro has decried what he called unfortunate rot in the county's planning department. So he, speaking at the county headquarters yesterday, he said it is unfortunate to learn that many real estate investors had waited for physical planning approvals for long, with some opting to pull out while others put up houses without the consent of the county. So that is what is happening in Kiambu County, and this is some of the issues that Kiambu County Governor wants to deal with.
Now, in closing, just to focus on the issues of sports, remember the Bundesliga is back on, and maybe it has also influenced other, even the EPL is seeking options for the empty stadiums, and it has agreed that the league voted on Monday to allow teams to return to non-contact training. Further on, here back at home, also clubs are set to set a date. That is, the Kenya Cup team want the league to end by October or be put off, as well as a blanket approach. That's on motorsports. If you enjoy motorsports, Formula One says UK quarantine would make British GP impossible. We'll be keeping tabs on that. But now taking you to the back page of the Star this morning. Iron Fist there, that is Fatuma Zarika, is keen on a comeback. Former WBC champion wants a rematch with Mexican rival Mercado. Kenya's most successful professional boxer, that is Fatuma Zarika, says she has unfinished business with the current world boxing champion Yemelith Yemi Mercado, despite the talk about the Mexican engaging on a rematch agreement. Now, Zarika defeated Yemi on points in their first title bout held in September 2018 in Nairobi, but lost the rematch held in Chihuahua, Mexico on November 16th last year. We'll be keeping tabs on that, and this is quite encouraging, especially for sports men and women. Iron Fist there, we wish you all the best in, just having that particular rematch replayed there. We want to thank each and every person who's been keeping tabs on what we are having, or rather bringing to you at home. Luke Maio, Kwananda Cherono, Meshak Mwangi, Kipruri Amos, who is watching from Bomet, Shanice J, who says Tunakufa Nja from Bamburi, Mombasa. That's a story we need to focus on and find out more about that particular comment. Kibet Karancha, who is watching from Iten, Kevo Chacha, Boniface Mwebi, who is watching from Kasarani, and Ted Kaburu, who is watching from Rero. Thank you very much. Remember, we are still live. Our broadcast is live on various social media platforms, including Facebook at KBC Channel 1 TV, as well as on our website, www.kbc.co.ke, on our YouTube line. Well, we're streaming, so to get on, tell us where you're watching the bulletin from. How about you take a break? When we return, we'll be looking at how the roads are looking at exactly 2 or 3 minutes past 8 a.m.
What's up, everybody? Mambo Whippy. This is Gladson Peter, aka One Man Band India. Catch me live from India on the Good Morning Kenya show, aka GMK, this Thursday morning from 9 a.m.
Hapo basi nyinyi ndio mwanamke mnavokosea. Young man, you are way out of line.
Are you on her side ama are you with us?
Sikuelewa teacher akifunza mambo ya photosynthesis na pollination.
Hiyo ni sherehe ya nini?
Hakuna. Nilikuwa nimenunua shopping kaja nayo jana hapa.
Saiwa sana ununua vitu zingine. Kuna hasara hapo.
Hata uweza kuizi na matajiri hata kidogo.
Uncle Job alisema atafunga nyumba.
Mudhe, tafadhali tu nipatie tu dakika moja. Mimi Job unakula chakula ya watoto seriously.
Tiffany must not leave the country.
Aisha pango.
I think we should leave.
Let's go. Ha, I needed some with some bop in it.
Mamacita, where you at? I've been trying to.
Coronavirus COVID-19 is a respiratory virus spreading across the world. The infection is spread from droplets of coughing and sneezing of an infected person, touching or shaking hands, or being in contact with contaminated surfaces or objects with the virus. The signs and symptoms are fever, coughing, headache, body ache, difficulty in breathing. The disease can be prevented by regularly washing hands with soap and running water. Avoid close contact with people who have flu-like symptoms. Avoid handshake, hugs, and kissing. Also, protect yourself by covering your mouth or nose using a disposable tissue while coughing or sneezing. If you experience these symptoms and you had traveled or been in contact with a person from a country reporting COVID-19, you should isolate yourself for 14 days. Dial *719# or call 719. This message has been brought to you by the Government of Kenya and its partners.
On our roads this morning, and we continue looking at how they are doing in terms of traffic. We began with Wayakiwe, and there was barely any traffic in the early morning hour when we were looking at Wayakiwe. But just as you branch off from that road coming to the University Way roundabout, which is a roundabout that connects to that road, that's where traffic was beginning to build up in that early morning hour. And as of now, a couple of minutes past 8 a.m., and clearly just from this map, traffic around the entire roundabout. Now, University Way roundabout is again one of those busy roundabout, since it's just at the heart of the city center. It branches off to a number of roads, all the way to Uhuru Highway, which again also branches off to a number of roundabouts. It also comes from Wayakiwe. So it is one of those busy roundabouts. And this early morning, through the entire roundabout, the traffic gridlock really just beginning to slightly build up, especially on that lane that branches off on that lane that comes from Wayakiwe, beginning to slightly build up. On the other lane, as you go to Uhuru Highway, traffic really starting to move at a pretty slow pace, and you can clearly see from this roundabout there's a bit of a mix-up of color. We have the orange and the red, an indication that from on some parts of this specific road, traffic building up, but at least moving at a pretty fast pace, and also on other sections of the same roundabout, traffic moving at a really slow pace. And just like I was telling you about the Outer Ring Road and some of the roundabouts on that latest highway, where traffic police are normally stationed very early in the morning to just try and control traffic because of the kind of traffic gridlock on those major roundabouts. The same case also goes for University Way roundabout, and as I had told you, this is one of those busy roundabouts. So ultimately, the traffic police are normally also stationed very early in the morning, as early as 6:30 a.m., just to try and see how best they can control traffic on this busy roundabout. So that means if you are coming from Wayakiwe, that is from Westlands, from Kangemi, Kino, Uthiru, coming to the city center, or going about your businesses this morning, and you may have to use University Way roundabout, this could be the best time for you to do that, because in as much as this traffic, at least it is quite manageable. Probably in the next hour, we'll be seeing traffic just at a standstill. And that's why I have mentioned, if you are using this specific roundabout or this route going about your businesses around the city center or even away from the CBD, this is the best time for you to do that. Also, moving away from the University Way roundabout, again, still sticking with Uhuru Highway, coming to, again, one of those roundabouts that branches off from that specific highway. This is Kenyatta Avenue. But before we go to that roundabout, on Uhuru Highway, just as you head over to the roundabout, also traffic beginning to build up there. Remember, again, on this lane, more of what we see on this lane is normally the private vehicles. We don't see more of the public service vehicles, especially on this specific lane, simply because it also branches off to Nyerere Road, which is again one of those roads where, in fact, it's not a road for public vehicles. It's normally just a road for the private vehicles. So this is again the reason as to why maybe there's no more of the heavy gridlock, especially on that specific road that branches off from University Way roundabout. But coming to Kenyatta Avenue, again, it's just still the same situation like how it was around the University Way roundabout. But at least there's a bit of difference on this specific roundabout, because when we were looking at the University Way roundabout, then the traffic gridlock was around the entire roundabout, where traffic was just beginning to slightly build up on some other sections, moving at a pretty slow pace. But when we come to Kenyatta Avenue roundabout, in as much as, yes, traffic has begun to slightly build up, but also on some other sections as you branch off from the roundabout, roundabout, still using Uhuru Highway, going all the way to Mombasa Road. There's just no traffic at all. So on this specific roundabout, on some sections, traffic begins to slightly build up. On some other sections, moving at a pretty fast pace. So that means if you're coming from places like the Mbagathi way, using this specific roundabout as you head all the way to the city center, or if you're coming from Valley Road, using this roundabout next to GPO coming to the city center, this is again the best time for you to do that, because and as much as there's traffic, it is manageable. But again, just next to the GPO stage, which is again also a bus terminus, traffic has begun to slightly build up, and this is on the lane that is leaving the Kenyatta Avenue roundabout as you use the GPO going all the way probably to Mbagathi, just still using the Kenyatta Avenue, going all the way to Valley Road. That specific lane, there's a bit of a traffic snarl up, just a slight traffic build up. On the other lane, so really moving at a pretty fast pace. In fact, there's no traffic at all. But just like the way I would keep mentioning to you, this is a bus terminus, the GPO stage. So obviously, this is what we'd expect to see in terms of the snarl up there. But away from that, again, still sticking with the same Uhuru Highway, moving also at a pretty fast pace, only on specific sections of this road where there's just a slight snarl up. Also next to Parliament buildings, a bit of a traffic gridlock there. This is on around the Kenyatta Avenue roundabout, just as you leave the University roundabout, using the Uhuru Highway, heading all the way to Haile Selassie roundabout. So that's that in terms of traffic this morning.
Thank you very much for that brief on what is happening on our major roads this morning. You've rightly put it. It seems that it is back to business, especially we're now seeing with the current traffic that we're experiencing in that particular area and that roundabout there. Thank you very much, Doreen. She will be coming back in not too long to just keep us abreast on what is happening if that situation does ease up. Now, this morning, we're going to be looking at several issues, and one of the issues is what you can do as a corporate or an individual to support government's efforts in countering COVID-19. Remember, we've been asked that this is our civic duty, actually. It has bordered to that. So joining me this morning is Dr. Githinji Gitahi, who is the CEO of Amref Group. So good morning, Dr. Githinji. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good morning, Regina.
Great to have you on board. Maybe you can start off and tell us exactly what does the National Business Compact on COVID-19 entail? Who are the members and what was its objective?
Now, the National Business Compact for coronavirus was something we initiated as soon as Kenya got its first case. We looked at what was going to be successful for this response. We knew there were certain things that the government had put in place, and those things included, the social distancing measures, advice, hand washing. Then there was, at that point, we had not started using masks yet, but there was advice on hand hygiene, crop hygiene, and all those things. And the business sector itself asked, what can we do? So, as the group CEO for Amref Health Africa, which is an NGO, we are not really a business. We went to the business sector and we got them together, and we had a meeting together with the UN family, the government represented then by the CAS, Massimo Kangi, the UN represented by UN, by SEED and WHO rep, Rudy. And we had people on the table. We had different people, Unilever, we had J&J, we had different people, Swiss Development, MSK, Marketing Society of Kenya was convening the meeting, and we just thought around and said, what really should we do? And we said the first thing we could do was to support Kenyans in ensuring that the measures the government had advised were actually being followed. We knew there was a big gap, for example, in access to water and access to soap for hand washing, which still remain the best interrupter of transmission of coronavirus. So we got soap companies together, Reckitt Benckiser and others, and many of them, and we got them to supply or to donate soap. Then we got other companies that engage with the communities, like Copia, Amref is one of them. We got others to come on the table that would then, once the soap is donated, there would be organizations that would ensure that hand washing stations are set up across the country. And these hand washing stations would be in places that were identified as hotspots for absence of hand washing, because we know that less than 50% of people regularly wash their hands in Kenya, and yet this is the best tool to avoiding coronavirus. So this is what we did. But at the same time, we say the government is going to have needs. The government, as it responds to a pandemic like this, will have urgent things that may not have been budgeted or may not have been thought about. And the government is like a truck, it doesn't respond to quick things when it needs to. So we established what we call the Flexi Fund. And the Flexi Fund was supposed to be cash money that was going to be available on request by the government when we needed to respond quickly. And we got companies like J&J and Swiss Development Fund to actually put in money there. So this is what we've been doing. And we've done a lot of things, assisting the government to collect waste in the emergency quarantine centers that were set up, assisting the government to buy blankets and bedding when the people needed quarantine and then there was no facilities at that particular point. We have collecting samples from Manyara. We have set up over 2,000 hand washing stations across the country, largely Western Kenya, Nairobi, Mombasa. So this is what the National Business Compact has been up to.
So since when this and we can call it NBC on COVID was launched, how much have you raised so far?
In total, I would say we've raised about close to 70 million, but a lot of that is in kind. So if you look at the cash collections, I think we've raised about 25 million Kenya shillings in cash. That was largely from J&J and the Swiss Development, and then we also got some money from Trigger Foods. The rest of it has been huge amounts of soap that has been donated, time donated, and logistics donated by organizations like Copia that are going to put up this. Hand washing stations that have been put up by Rotary all over the country, as part of the National Business Compact. We have also received tissues, we've received sanitizers, we have received a lot of goods in kind, which we really, truly appreciate. And these continue to come through. And of course, time given by people who are working in the Secretariat, absolutely for free, Miriam Sidibe and her input, people like Margaret who are working in the Secretariat. We have actually a lot of goodwill in this, and we have other organizations like KEPSA and CAM who have been our members as well. But a lot of the corporates have actually come forward with just commodities for us to be able to use and to set up hand washing stations for Kenyans.
So it's not just
and
about
obviously
the
a lot
money.
of media. We have media like yourself supporting us. Without you, we will not be able to go out and tell the public what they need to do. And you've also seen a lot of adverts that we have done. Billboards donated for free. All the billboards you see with the National Business Compact in the city, in Mombasa, wherever, are also for free from our partners. Agencies offering creative work.
So
for free,
what
like,
organizations, Dr. Githenji, are you looking to have on board, to come on board on the National Business Compact on COVID? What organizations are you targeting to come on board so that you can farm up on your interventions in countering COVID-19?
So you see, we are actually not discriminating, because I think, as you have seen, we are receiving both cash. So if an organization feels they are not, capacitated enough to do hand washing, for example, or donate soap. Let's say you're a bank and you don't want to be involved in soap and hand washing stations. You can donate money to the Flexible Fund, which then helps us to assist the government. You can also donate money that helps us to buy more media space or to engage with the media houses. If you are in manufacturing and you think you can manufacture sanitizers, please come on board, because we need them to distribute to the people. If you are manufacturing soap, which is really necessary, if you are in branding, if you are any organization, including KBC, can join, because you come together, you bring us the platform that you have to reach to the people. So we are quite open, but our focus is to ensure behavior change for hygiene, and to ensure we support the government, and to ensure that we actually not only do behavior change, but we supply the people with the items they need, like clean water and soap for hand washing.
Now, since you're focusing on, issues of hygiene, what is your take on Kenyans seeming complacency in as far as adhering to the laid down guidelines, especially how we wear our masks, the masks that we are having in the market. What is your take on that, and how is it, countering your efforts?
Well, this is, people keep the habits they know, and it's very difficult to change behavior. Behavior change doesn't happen in a short time. So we know that we've talked about hand washing, for example. I was taught about hand washing when I was in primary school. But even when you're taught that you need to wash your hands before you eat, after you go to the toilet, all these things, we know still that not 100% of people adhere to this behavior change, requests. So, or advice. So we are starting from a place where people were only living with the habits that they know. So when you now introduce a new habit, like wear a mask, people have to get used to it. People have to understand, and also it's not a comfortable thing to do. Wearing a mask, you're not wearing a necklace. It's something that you have to get used to in terms of how to tie it around your face, the initial discomfort. So people have to understand why they wear this mask. So this is what we are doing, advising them on the type of mask, how to use the mask, and also they need to understand that they're doing this to protect themselves and protect their loved ones. So the complacency, what we call complacency, is driven by attitudes and previous behavior. So we do not blame Kenyans. We just continue to advise them. And the thing we need is to talk to them as we are doing now, continuously, until whatever they're struggling with becomes a habit.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk about hygiene, there comes in the issue of sanitation, and water is a crucial aspect. Availability of water, especially in peri-urban areas, is something that we're still dealing with. How is, availability of water or lack of, especially in Nairobi, which we consider one of the hotspots, affecting your work as a national business compact on Covet?
Well, it is affecting our work. It's affecting the work of the government because we know that access to water is not universal, whereas the need for water is universal. The access to it is not universal. So we have talked to the government, and the government has taken measures to see how to work with the Water and Sanitation Ministry to ensure that water is available. Of course, the challenges continue. So there is a lot of water distribution going on. We know also that there are politicians, and we urge more of them to get water bowsers and supply water to the communities that don't have water, because it is a necessity in stopping this contagion. We beyond that, we are supplying water. We are working to ensure that the tanks that we provide, we are providing now about tanks of 50 liters of water. So we ensure that they are actually supplied with water and they have water in them. So we don't just supply the tanks and the soap, we supply the water as well. But if the government efforts can increase availability of water in the communities, then we do not have them to spend the extra money to supply water where there is none. But it is definitely affecting. But remember, we tell people that running water is not necessarily tap water. Running water, you can actually take water as long as it's clean, or and even it doesn't have to be purified water. It doesn't have to be water from a distillery or something. Water that is fairly clean with soap, just soap, will clean not only coronavirus from your hands, but it will clean other bacteria.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gidenji there. We're having a bit of a problem. They're just trying to get back to that particular conversation. Remember, we're talking about the National Business Compact on COVID, which is, different organizations have come into play to just support government in countering the spread of COVID-19 that has so far claimed 50 lives locally, and we have 963 active, confirmed cases of COVID-19. Now, as we close, Dr. Gidenji there, these interventions by NBC, are they long-term? Are we going to be having this kind of interventions post-COVID?
Yes, we look forward to continuing to building this as a business coalition. Business against poverty. You know that business itself cannot do well unless it does good as well. So we look forward to continuing this. You know, there are many other platforms like SDG platform that's also bringing business, private sector together for healthy populations under the UN platform. And we want to continue with this and also partner with people like the SDG platform, partner with people like Red Cruz and others, and all the partners who come together to continue to ensure that people are healthy. So this is not a one-off kind of thing. It is something that we want to make sustainable, you know, through the business fights poverty kind of platform. Mm-hmm. So it's not a one-off.
Okay. So what areas of scope, how far have your interventions gone as a National Business Compact on COVID? What counties? Are you just based in Nairobi, or is this a countrywide outfit?
This is a countrywide outfit. We have, I think our stations, I would say, have been told have provided hand washing to more than 1.5 million people. That's a lot. And many of them will be in Nairobi, others in Western Kenya, and others in Coast Province. We have kind of focused on the areas that were originally identified as hotspots. But of course, our measures, including like helping the government to manage waste management, is largely in Nairobi, where the quarantine centers were. Collection of samples is in Manyara. So we are responding to the government needs as they are. But in terms of hand washing, is Nairobi, Western Kenya, and Coast Province. Mm-hmm.
What's your take from where you sit on government's current measures on stemming COVID-19? We've seen Kenyans, critics coming out and saying, since we have 23 counties that have already had confirmed cases of COVID, then why are you locking in or rather restricting movement in some areas considered as hotspots? From where you sit, what is your take?
My take is that the government has done good efforts, could do better. Obviously, there is always room for improvement. So I know there's a lot of criticism or even doubt about what the government is doing. But let me just reflect on this. That number one, COVID-19 or coronavirus is new to all of us. So everyone is always a few steps behind the virus. That is the truth. So when you start with what you know. And when the government started, it started with what we knew from other countries. And it started, you know, the closure, for example, of border very early helped us not to import very many cases. Secondly, the closure of movement from urban areas to rural areas has also helped us to keep our elderly people safe. Remember that coronavirus may infect us, but it is most dreadful and most severe in people above 60 years, especially men. So keeping people flowing from the urban centers to rural areas is a problem, is a good thing. The next thing is now what we are seeing with the hotspots. That when you have a hotspot like Isli and Old Town, where you want to contain, that's what we call containment. You find out the positive people where they are. You isolate them where they are because the virus is carried by people. So mobility of people is what increases transmission. When you slow down movement, you reduce transmission. These are the measures the government is taking, and I think we need to take them seriously.
Mm-hmm. So in your opinion, do we need to put up, given the current curve, we're already having double-digit, infections for the last 1 week. Yeah, we're seeing 50, 47, 46, such numbers. Given where we're going, or rather where the curve seems to be going, do you think we need more stringent measures than what we currently have?
Honestly, I do not think that we need more stringent measures than what we currently have. What I think is we need to comply with the measures that are currently put. So let me just reflect on this, that, the measures beyond what has been done would mean cessation of movement completely, saying people should not move, there should be a lockdown. The challenge with a lockdown is that you don't know when to unlock. It becomes a challenge when you lock down. What signals and when do you say now we have unlocked? Because remember that there's nothing you're going to do that's going to stop the virus completely. What you're going to do is put measures that slows down the rate of infection or the rate of transmission. What we call flattening the curve, that people may not understand, does not mean stopping the virus. It means actually slowing down the virus. So when we put the measures that we're doing now, we're saying, if you reduce movement of people, you will then reduce the rate of transmission from one person to another. The only thing that would actually stop the virus is a vaccine. All these measures we are doing will never stop the virus. They will just make sure that the rate of infection is low, that we protect the most vulnerable people, and even if we didn't have a virus, over time, as many of us as probably 6 out of 10 will get infected over time. What you do not want is for all these people, 6 out of 10, to be infected in a short time, and therefore you have a problem because you have a crisis with so many people requiring to go to hospital. That's what we are doing. We are not stopping the virus completely. We are slowing it down. So I think the measures we have, if they can be obeyed, have helped us so far to slow down the virus. We should continue to obey them so that we do not have to lock down the country, because remember, the cure could be worse than the disease, because you can lock down the country and the economic effects or the economic impacts are worse than actually the effects of COVID. So we have to be careful and support the government in the measures that it's taking so that we slow it down.
Now, in closing, as you come to a close, Dr. Gidenji, you've said that this is an outfit that has a national outlook and is going to be there post-COVID. For an individual and an organization looking to come on board, what do they require?
So we are encouraging, individuals, not just the general public, because we know the general public is also affected, and that the general public is the people we're helping. So we are not necessarily asking for the general public to come and put in money, because the general public itself is struggling. So we are cognizant that people are losing their jobs. We are cognizant that people have lost, part of their salaries. So we are asking corporates to actually come to us, and the National Business Compact has a Twitter account, has contact, and you can reach any of us. You can reach myself, you can reach the Secretariat. I don't have the email offered, and this can be shared. But, we are asking people to contact the National Business Compact. Our contacts are available publicly, and talk to us, and we'll tell you exactly what role you can play, because every single corporate, or if you're an individual who has enough resources and you want to participate individually, contact us, and we'll be able to guide you. You can even reach me on Twitter. My Twitter account is @Daktari1. You can reach out to me, and I'll be able to tell you how you can participate, or even reach the National Business Compact, Business Fights Poverty, #, and we can tell you exactly how to participate.
Very well, Daktari. Thank you for your time there. Your Twitter handle @Daktari1 there on Twitter if you want to reach out and just be a part of this notable and worthy cause there. Later on, we're going to be talking about issues of technology with Nixon Mogeka, who is a data and policy expert. But before we talk about technology, just talking from what Kenyans can do to support each other during COVID, I hand you over to my colleague Ram Aguko with another interactive segment.
And even as we talk about the COVID-19 and the effects it has, let me just sample a few of your feedback on Facebook. We remember we are live there, so I'm seeing feedback coming in even as we continue with this morning conversation. Let me start with Frank Nakweba saying, good morning, watching live from Dubai, UAE. Masingwa Duine Tachio is saying, good morning, Kenyans, watching live from Keroka, Kisii. We have someone from, this is Victor, watching live from Nyariacho in Nyamira County. Kevin Oliseno, morning, we are watching live from Isecheno Village, Tukombele pamoja na Kelly wa Luvili. All right. Joshua Munguru Ismail anasema kutoka Kisii, Nyatieko Milimani Kinyozi watching. Kolos Skonto anasema good morning, watching live from Nandi. I'm seeing Winnie Oruko anasema good morning, watching live from Homa Bay County. Patrick Kisali watching from Pangani. Margaret watching from Mudega. Pato anasema good morning, watching live from United States of Islando Massive. All right, so these are just a few of the tweets coming, of the comments coming in on our website, www.kbc.co.ke, on our Facebook page at KBC Channel 1, on Twitter at KBC Channel 1. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. Tag me at Ramaguko, at Jane Oboy, at Ray Manyara, and at Doreen Arange. Well, the viewpoint continues, and this morning, in terms of the coronavirus effects on the economy and on different aspects, I would like to focus on legislature. Remember, there are three arms of government: the legislature also has been affected by the COVID-19. In as much as, yes, the executive has been putting its best foot forward by being led by the president and also the Ministry of Health to keep Kenyans updated. But now, how is legislation being affected by this? This morning, to put this into perspective in how our members of parliament are doing, I'm joined by Honorable John Mutunga, Member of Parliament, Tigania West. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Ram, for the invitation and for the opportunity to contribute to this debate.
Karibu sana. And let me correct something. Honorable Dr. John Mutunga.
Yes, thank you so much. That's my correct reference. Let me first of all start by sending a message of condolences to the family of our late brother who lost his life yesterday from Makueni. Honorable Kilo, we lost him, and to the family, we are with you. We pray that the Almighty God gives you strength this time. Yeah, it's a very difficult time.
In regards to that, the president and the deputy, together with so many others, they sent messages of condolences to the family.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, Honorable Peter Kiilu, Member of Parliament, former Member of Parliament of Makueni, who passed. They were saying that, even the president said that he eulogized him as a friend and seasoned public administrator who served the nation and people of Makueni with distinction.
Yeah, that is a correct description of the of Kilo. Now, about Parliament.
Yeah. Before we talk about Parliament, I would like to start of all by this. There are a lot of issues being brought by the pandemic when we talk about legislative approach. This arm of government, legislature, and we're talking about Parliament, you have been very, very busy, crafting ad hoc legislation to give legal effects on those directives. How has it been legislating during this COVID-19 pandemic?
The Constitution, specifically Article 223, allows government to spend money in the event of an emergency, among others. But that expenditure is brought back to Parliament for purposes of putting it into law. And what happened when we started having cases of coronavirus infection, the executive took the decision to, first of all, create the National Emergency Response team that has been put in place to look into ways and propose policies that would lead to containment of the spread of the coronavirus. So what happened is that several decisions were made, and even money was used. And what Parliament does is therefore correct that by putting it into law, because we need to operate in the context of law. So there were several pronouncements made by the President in terms of the tax laws. You did quite a number of tax changes in the tax regimes, and this needed to be put into law.
And even as we talk about all these laws, how has it been, trying to move into Parliament during all these sessions, trying to pass laws? How has it been for you?
You see, social distancing, initially, you remember there was a lot of hullabaloo. So many members of Parliament are sick, and we had the members of Parliament tested, and we don't know who actually...
People accuse you of members of Parliament of being positive of COVID-19.
Yeah, we had 17 members. There was a report that 17 members were sick, and I actually do not know a single member of Parliament who was sick. I personally was tested, and I got my results, just as probably everybody else did. And some of the people who are even listed, we have talked, and they don't know, they don't remember having been sick anywhere. The scare, the COVID-19 scare is real, and it is a new thing to everyone across the globe, and we have seen impacts in some of the very strong countries. And what Kenyan parliamentarians did was, first of all, to stop the sittings, and then arrange on a mechanism of, trying to ensure that there is social distancing. Like the main auditorium, the chamber, the main chamber where we normally sit, which can seat both houses, can only contain 70 members at the moment. Because when the public health came and assessed the arrangement of the seats and the possibilities of spread of the virus, if somebody is infected when you are probably making a statement on the floor, then they realize that there is need for quite some distancing. And they have marked the seats, so we can only fit 70 members in the House.
And at this point, it is important for me to note that, remember, KBC Channel 1 normally broadcasts these live parliamentary proceedings right here as they happen. Yes. And as we've been broadcasting it, I noticed that, as you said, that the seats are marked.
They are numbered.
Actually,
right from the entrance, even the floor is marked where the member stands. You stand 1.5 meters away from the other as we wait. And then we are managed through. You sign in, then you walk slowly as you are ushered into the seats. The others wait along those marked points of standing.
But then how do you ensure that, you all get equal chances to be able to get into the House and pass bills?
There is always some guidelines given by the Speaker the day before. If the sittings, by the way, the sittings were reduced to only 1 day in a week.
1 day.
That's on Wednesdays. Right now we're on recess. We are on the budget making process recess. But when we are going for 1 day in a week on Wednesdays. So by Thursday, the business of the House the following Wednesday is released. And then everybody is requested to now decide whether they want to go for the morning session or the afternoon session on both. And rarely will you find, unless you are a chair of a committee which is transacting business, for instance, when we are doing the tax laws, the committee on finance and the committee on budget and appropriation were very key. So in this case, they were actually possibly sitting both morning and afternoon. But what happens is that you choose which session you want to sit in, and then we start voting on Friday at 1. For the following week, Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday.
You're in the committee on in the budget committee and
yes, the committee on agriculture.
Committee on agriculture.
Yes.
So, have you had chances where you made your submission that you're going to sit, but you missed out?
Yeah, once. I think the very first one, I tried and I think I was a little bit late and I think I was skipped because it's on a first come, first served basis. First of all, they take care of the House business, the leadership of the House. And then I think the first 10 to 15 slots are taken away. Then the rest are as per when you voted, when you basically chose to participate. If you participate late, then you are likely to be among those people who will be locked out. The parliament is structured in such a way that the entire dining area and the lounges and even the VIP lounge for the members has been transformed into a sitting area. Plus, they have also put a few tents outside, and then they are all served with the TVs where you can easily monitor TVs where you can monitor the business in the House.
Okay.
However, those members who are seated within the House have got the greatest advantage to participate in the debates. Since we did that, I think I've been able to sit twice, and I missed one because I was away. So it is possible, actually. I think it is on a priority basis, depending on the business itself and depending on when you try to secure the position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
so it has not been easy because you realize that only 70 members can very actively participate in a debate. The others have got an option of participating from outside. The VIP lounge is set in such a way that there's a television there. There's a camera where you basically can give your contributions.
Also, they can participate also from the lounge.
Yes, from the VIP lounge.
From the VIP lounge.
Yes.
And let me just briefly touch on this because you're in the agriculture committee.
Yes.
We have a current problem. Yes, the COVID-19 is there.
Yeah.
But we have floods. We have locusts there. How far are we also in addressing this, even as we are addressing the pandemic?
Locusts came in earlier, much earlier, and there were mechanisms for responding to locusts. First of all, as a country, we've been having a center at Isiolo, which is a desert locust control center that has been monitoring the swarms of locusts, occurrence of these swarms and the direction they are moving, the direction of the wind, and how they are also, So when the first swarms crossed over through Manyara, they were able to know. So we started seeing desert locusts from the north spreading to the south, around Isiolo, around Garissa, Mandera, around Kenya region, and then they crossed over. Laikipia and Samburu have been seriously affected because they've been there for quite some time, the Baringo area and so on. Right now, the locusts are moving towards the north, towards Sudan, because of the changes in the winds and also, I think, the ecological systems.
The climate?
It's basically ecological changes. You see, we are moving on with the weather changes.
Yes.
When weather changes, the direction of the winds changes. That affects the movement of the locust swarms.
So should we expect that it will in turn also help in reducing the number of locusts in terms of the effect itself?
For the time being, there is no great worry because they're moving out of Kenya. However, we have a second and third generation locusts, those that have already been, they have laid eggs, and these eggs have hatched into nymphs and they're moving into becoming locusts. That has been an issue. There has been serious monitoring. What I would like to launch is a concerted effort between the government and the private sector. The private sector actually was in the front line to partner with the government to make sure that at least locust monitoring and also the spraying is done. Initially, there were issues of the chemical not being very effective and looking for the chemical, importing the chemical under very stringent timelines may have affected us a bit, but finally we got some chemical from Japan and it has been working very well. And the locust is more or less it's an issue that right now is being contained very well. Now came in the COVID-19 and also the floods. Floods this year, that was very serious because it requires a lot of crisis response and the level of resource demand has been very high. So a lot of attention needed to be, especially on the floods, because very many people have lost their livelihoods, we have lost lives, we've lost infrastructure and many other things, and then it's a major issue.
There are people who have been relocated, who are, relocated
along the flood lines, yes.
Even like Victoria, thousands of families have been displaced. Many left homeless. What is the way forward, even as we are addressing that?
What basically happens, I think there was a cabinet meeting and decisions were made to allocate some resources to the Ministry of Agriculture to try and respond to some of these issues. Using the county infrastructure, because most of the agriculture is done at the county, since it's a major, one of the mainly devolved functions, then we have had counties doing what they can in terms of salvaging, the lives. And also in terms of salvaging the livestock, the crops, and so on, and then the land itself. When it comes to response to the livelihoods and the lives of the people and so on, there has been effort to ensure that at least there is identification of the areas where we have had serious impact, where we have landslides, and roads being completely blocked. I was in Merodha last weekend and I tried to drive through one of the roads I did not know.
It was impossible.
Only to find that it is blocked, and I decided to see exactly what the problem was. This road passes just near Mount Kenya, from Meru to Chogoria, and I found the whole section had been washed off. The size of the logs that were brought from the forest are so huge, so it will take serious landslides, and then the whole of that valley now is affected. So there is a lot of effort required and a lot of resources required, and the speed of resolving this is really, speed of is of essence. Time is of essence because people are suffering.
Yet at the same time, we need to divide our resources, our budget to address all these issues.
And then came COVID, which basically brought down the level of resource, the revenue collection. Of course, the revenue in the country is affected significantly. We are likely to resort to a lot of borrowing this year to support the next year's budget. There was also the supplementary budget, which came, and which was passed by the Parliament to try and respond to some of these issues, which had some provisions to address the COVID issue and to try to also rationalize and sanitize some of the decisions made during the crisis moment.
But not Dr. Mutunga, in regards to that, on the same breath, is taking a loan going to be the best move for the country? How, do we have any measures that we can put, to resuscitate the economy?
How I wish we could actually stop taking loans. There are very few options. One of the options is liquidation of resources, of assets. We have a few assets which you can sell. We have investment in some of the businesses like banks, and state corporations have also invested. we have infrastructure, or we have investments in various in housing and others, which the government can actually sell, and they probably cushion the debt. Unfortunately, that takes time, and when we have a crisis like COVID, property does not move fast, and if it does, it moves at very low prices. This is the wrong time to sell any property, and you will not get a lot of interest. Plus, there is this emphasis that people should try and save the little money they have, because you don't know how long the COVID is going to be there around us. So it's a serious thing. That's one of the ways government can raise revenue. The other way is government being, that one does not seem to be one of the options that is considered. The other one is actually trying to contain the spending, scale down the spending. It is possible to reduce spending by, of course, reducing some of the investment projects and, reducing the unnecessary things. Like when it came to contribution, what the parliament did in terms of their contribution, we decided to do away with all our travel, whether internal or external, and we have saved a lot of money and given that money to COVID. So those are some of the things that could be looked into, because in any case, the entire world is locked. There's nobody who is traveling. Why should you have money for traveling and accommodation? I mean, you should not be having some.
Speaking of money, there is no money on the ground.
I agree with you. There's no money on the ground, and I had an opportunity to watch Dr. Githinji speaking about the response and so on. And I would like to say that on the ground, those responses are not sufficiently felt. When we say that they are sufficient in terms of the efforts that are being made, it is sufficient, I think we need to interrogate that particular statement, because if you go across the country, people are still expectant. People are expecting a lot from the government. The government enforced wearing of masks and social distancing, and that has been an issue, especially during the first few days of enforcement. People were arrested and thrown in because they were not wearing masks.
You had said that some villages, I think it was in Meru, you said some villagers were sharing face masks. You said those going to the market were borrowing face masks from those who are at home, because they want to avoid being arrested by the police. And people are found, sharing these face masks within, and other things, including Mira, cigarette, salt, and farm produce. And I'm aware that you bought over 2,000 to 25,000 masks from your own fund.
Yeah, first of all, let me say that the CDF, national government CDF, is not relevant when it comes to responses to emergencies that are not school-related or security-related. So zero, nothing from CDF. Secondly, there was need for people to respond quickly, because our people are being arrested and there were calls from all over that we need to come in. And the national, let me say, the parliament has not been actively involved in the response initiatives. We've not been implementing most of those. The county government is working with the national government to try and structure out some response initiatives. Again, the member of parliament in any given constituency is considered to be the source of all support and help, and therefore we have to go out of our way to look for ways of supporting them. I want to thank the government for one thing. They are providing a bit of sanitizers. We've been getting sanitizer from Kenya Petroleum Company and got 600 liters, but already, people are demanding for sanitizers.
But what about you as a member of parliament? People have voted for you. How are you also, putting your hands on the ground?
Physical presence is very important. This physical presence is also curtailed by the decree that we should not have more than 15 meetings of more than 15 people. A member of parliament passing through his constituency, especially like, for instance, if I pass through my constituency, at any one time, everybody will come. People will come and we will have a meeting. You don't really need to call for a meeting.
What are you doing to help people on the ground then?
It has been very difficult. So what we did is mobilize resources. I did, as a family, we contributed about 750,000 and bought 25,000 masks and distributed. Then I called upon my friends who contributed some more money, and we bought some more 6,000. So we distributed that 1,000 masks. They also demanded for sanitizers. You see, any initiative happening at the national level or in Nairobi must permeate to the ground for people to feel properly taken care of. So if we can't tell them to wash their hands and people are using sanitizer, they want to feel the sanitizers even themselves. So what we did is that I had to come up with a way of making sure that we get them some sanitizers. Bought bottles, I think 3,000 bottles for small ones for the motorcycle riders, because they're handling cash. And also I bought 1,000 slightly bigger bottles, which of course the small ones are good for, those people who are moving from one place to another. You can put it in the pocket. And then some 1,000 for those who are in the shops, so that they can also sanitize themselves and the people when they exchange cash. Because cash is one of the easiest way to transmit the virus.
But now, I saw photos of you on the ground. Yeah. You're distributing all this. Yeah. You're having your face mask on, yeah. And people are all around you. Yeah. How are you able to work with your constituents during the pandemic like this, where we need also to maintain social distancing and at the same time help your people, because there is socio-economic effects of this pandemic?
It is very difficult for a member of parliament to actually visit his people or her people, and they don't have a crowding. What we are doing is sneak into our constituencies and sneak out of our constituencies, sneak into your home and out of your home.
You're sneaking into your own home?
Yeah, you sneak into your home. So what we do, like I've been doing the lounges in my own compound. I bring the staff at the house, and then we do the launch. Then we have an organized distribution system. First of all, I got in touch with the committee, the Replica committee, the devolved committee on the ground, the emergency response committee of the sub-county, and we agreed very well on the distribution mechanism. We decided to use organized groups and then drew their chairs. So it's only the chairs that we invite, and we put them on 1.5 meter sitting, and then we distribute these things to them. So we've been able to distribute the masks through such a process, and even the sanitizers we are distributing. And even the refilling of the sanitizers is arranged in such a way that the chairman collects all the bottles and brings them for refilling, and then he goes and distributes them.
What's the response from the people?
Extremely good. People are very happy about what you're doing, and they're very satisfied that at least we are participating at the time when they need us most. And I like to say that all of us should try to do something. Otherwise, all the members should try to do something, because people are expectant. Yeah, they would like to.
But now, let me come back to Parliament.
Yes.
You say that there are some certain weaknesses that are there that also need to be addressed. What are the weaknesses that exist?
One of the weaknesses, or rather I would say is a challenge, is that we all cannot participate in the legislative process at the same time. Even if all members do not speak to a law, members have an opportunity to raise an objection or a point of order or correction when they are sitting in the floor. Yeah. That doesn't happen because only 70 members can sit in the main house. One of the things we were imagining that probably the House leadership could have thought through is putting us in a big auditorium. There are some big auditoriums in this country.
Where?
Like Kasarani, the gymnasium. Gymnasium is very big. Okay. We have had a meeting, a Jubilee meeting there, and we were many thousands. And I believe there we can have social distancing, and all members can participate. All they need is to have mobile, mics, so that we are able to, participate in the legislative process.
The Kasarani Gymnasium.
Kasarani Gymnasium is a good example. It's a big hall. It's very large. And it's somewhere where we can actually sit freely and comfortably and do the work.
Have you brought this proposal to the
there was no opportunity for us to continue to do that, because the House leadership has been meeting to make these discussions and make the decisions, as it were, and then communicate the decisions through the Speaker's statement. The other auditoriums, I believe, in this country, which are much larger, much bigger. And I think the other challenge, which has really been brought by, and members have been talking about this, is the fact that people cannot congregate. Since social distancing has been approved as a norm, I want to strongly state that people need to be allowed now to open their churches. I think it is important. People need to start praying in their churches. You can have several services in a day, and you can still maintain the church social distancing. I don't think it is really very wise. And mosques, I think we should have open our worship centers. It is important.
I like that.
It is important because we are likely to degenerate into something very different, and yet we are very, God-fearing and daring country.
All right. But you, in the move to pass legislation to combat this pandemic, it is understandable that the legislation has to continue. But the National Assembly and the Senate appear to be trying to outdo each other. And I would like to know what your take on that. You will answer that after we take this short break. So keep it. Good morning, Kenya. We are back in a bit.
on the next episode of Corner.
Do you support him?
Absolutely.
I was just asking your wife how she copes with you being away. Some sportsmen's wives have been known to stray.
What kind of gentlemen come to watch young boys beat each other to a pulp for the fun of it?
You're beginning to annoy me.
Get out of the way. Abasi, ambia huyu kijana wako atoke njiani.
Sina jukumu lolote kwako. Mimi si babako. And any sympathy I had went out the window the second you attacked that girl.
Please do.
Welcome back. We are just continuing with our morning conversation right here on Good Morning Kenya. I am with Dr. John Mutunga, a Honorable Member of Parliament from Tigania West. And before we went for that break, I posed a question. Nikaona ukacheka kidogo. So I'm wondering, yes, we are in this COVID-19 pandemic. We're trying to fight it. But both houses of Parliament, we talk about the National Assembly and the Senate, appear to be trying to outdo each other. What is your take on that?
Well, legislative making is free. Anybody can bring a bill to the House. However, the Senate concentrates on bills that touch on the counties as per the Constitution, and the National Assembly basically looks at all the bills. So when a bill originates from Senate, it will come to the National Assembly, or when it originates from National Assembly, which has any impact on the counties, it will go to the Senate. Money bills are made by and done by the National Assembly. So those bills do not go to the Senate. So apart from basically when it comes to resource allocation, the distribution, and so on, that is done by the National Assembly. So any member can actually originate, any house can originate a legislation in this country.
So you say this perceived notion that the houses are competing or trying to outdo each other?
That perception sometimes renders people, I mean, it brings in some dimensions. And sometimes, like last year, you remember how the Senate fought for increase of the revenue, of the money allocated through the revenue sharing bill. And that was misplaced because it's supposed to be 15% of the revenue that can be collected. And this is estimated. You see, you're looking at futures when future has got so many other things that can affect, collection of such revenue. So that one brings in division, which is really not supposed to be there.
It's not necessary.
Senate and National Assembly work together. They agree quite a lot on terms of bills. If there's any dispute, there is a dispute resolution committee formed by members from each of the houses, and they normally agree on the nitty-gritties and on the sound of words, if I may say that. How does it affect the people? Where do we need to, what do we need to change so that we are all comfortable? So Parliament operates as it were, as a single unit, but by camera.
All right, Mheshimiwa, because of the interest of time, what would be your final or your proposal moving forward in terms of how the country can be able to fight this pandemic with the help of all arms of government, including the legislature?
There is need for serious consultation between all the arms of government and agreement on the way forward. We should all play our roles effectively. I would like to launch Parliament because once so many decisions were made, especially on the taxation laws, and they needed to be amended, Parliament took it upon itself to do it quite quickly and amend those laws in sync with what the executive had done. The legislature, the Parliament needs to. Management, let me say the House leadership needs to consider opportunities where everybody can participate in lawmaking. Although the situation is difficult, I think they can look for possibilities of bringing everyone on board so that people can feel satisfied to participate in the legislative process. And of course, there are very, very, very many other things that are happening. There's so much politics in Parliament right now. But I would like to mention one thing. Having come from Mount Kenya East, I don't think it is necessary to drag in Kidiki I want to specifically mention Senator Kideke into those camps that are happening. I don't think it's necessary at all.
It's uncalled for.
It is not necessary because somebody has brought in Kangata, Senator Kangata has brought in a bill, a motion. He has notice of a motion to impeach him, for having failed to attend a meeting.
All right. Now,
I want to say that attending or failing to attend a meeting is not really, should not, one meeting in so many years should not be taken that seriously.
It does not hold water for his impeachment.
There is misuse of power in that house.
All right. Now, Mheshimiwa, hapo umeingia siasa. And I would like us to talk about another day, talk about politics in regards to this. Your thoughts in regards to, Senator Kindiki's impeachment motion, whether it will pass through. But just as a yes or a no, will it pass through? Yes or a no?
It won't pass through.
It won't pass through.
It will be very difficult for them to garner the numbers.
All right. Thank you very much. That is Honorable Dr. John Mutunga, Member of Parliament for Tigania West, discussing the effects of COVID-19 on legislature. This is The Viewpoint.
Still keeping up with The Viewpoint this morning, we're looking at ICT infrastructure and focusing on universal coverage of, telecommunications and 5G rollout. 7 companies have already done trials to roll out 5G. And what does this portend for the ICT infrastructure? Joining me this morning is Nixon Mageka, who's a technology and data policy expert. Good morning, Nixon. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
So, how does Kenya fare in as far as telecommunications access, or rather, is concerned currently?
Well, Kenya is really doing very well, I must say, in terms of catching up in this universal service concept. And you may have known that the universal service concept really is a concept that is used in ICT to kind of populate ICT in areas where the ICTs are not there, what we could call underserved and unserved areas. And the government uses, governments all over the world uses what we call the universal service funds, which really are telecommunication subsidies and fees managed by regulators, that is telecom regulators in different countries, for the intention of promoting, universal access to telecommunication services in underserved and unserved areas of the country. In Kenya, we have the Universal Service Fund, which is domiciled at the Communication Authority of Kenya. And over the past years, the fund has been used to propagate ICT in many areas still underprivileged in terms of ICTs.
Mm-hmm. So what inroads have been made to, bridge the gaps in as far as the universal coverage of ICT is concerned?
You may be aware that under the USF, the Communication Authority of Kenya has been able to do a number of projects. One is the network project that is trying to close the network divide around the country. This has seen the Universal Service Fund use about 1.24 billion to cover a section of the country like Kilifi, West Pokot, Kajiado, Narok, Bungoma, Turkana, Wajir, Garissa, and Kwale counties, areas that are either underserved or unserved. And then, of course, the second project that this fund has been able to do was the broadband connectivity, where CE has connected about 869 schools, public secondary schools, at a cost of about 850 million. So initiatives like this are geared to, stretch the expanse of ICT in this country, and then also close that gap of the digital divide.
Now let's talk about 5G. Kenya is poised at, rolling out 5G. What impact, what are the likely benefits are we going to get, or rather the impact in the telecommunications industry as a whole?
Well, the 5th generation network, as we call it, or 5G as you're calling it, promises super fast speeds. It's about 10 times or more faster speeds than what we have as 4G. But I also will be quick to say that 5G will not replace 4G per se. We will see a coexistence of 5G and 4G alongside. But of course, 5G, like I said, will improve the speeds and therefore also create a lot of new economic opportunity because it will enable more connectivity of devices on the technology, as we call it, Internet of Things. You will be aware that 5G can support 4G supports up to 4,000 devices per square meters, whereas 5G will support around 1 million devices. So that makes it more powerful and moving forward, things like Netflix streaming and voice calls and YouTube will be carried in a very fast network without interruption of a limited airspace. So we will be seeing fast technology, and we will also be realizing a lot of opportunity with 5G, where we will also be having issues of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and also things to do with driverless cars and so forth. So all this technology will be supported under the 5G or the 5th generation network.
Very well said in that. Now, a few months ago, the president, that is President Uhuru Kenyatta, said that Kenya had gotten into a deal of sorts, Telkom Kenya with the Google Loon project, and that is keen on ensuring that underserved areas, Marsabit, such areas, Faflang, also are connected to the network. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's a good initiative because as much as possible, every technology that works to close the digital divide is welcome. We have used fiber to roll out broadband. We have used VSAT, and of recent, like you have pointed out, we now are going to the loom technology, which uses balloons to try and close the gaps where we will be able to, give Kenyans access to the internet. It would be interesting for you to know that just recently the ITU gave the figure of 3.6 million people who are not connected on internet, and majority of that really resides in Africa. So any technology that would work to connect the public, the people, the citizens, the network is really encouraged. And especially if you look at the period that we are in, COVID-19, it has taught us a lot of things because now there's limited interaction of people, and therefore, even using platforms like what we are using now, like Zoom, to reach out and communicate information, and because of the epidemic that we are facing now, people are working from home, schools are closed, and therefore teachers are reaching out to students through technology. All this cannot be successful enough if we do not work out on the infrastructure to connect people so that they are able to even work in times like this, where social distancing is the main thing.
Now, you've mentioned that indeed we are, during these are uncertain times presented by COVID-19. The issue of the rollout of 5G has also come along with different narratives. Some linking them, or linking 5G to COVID-19. From an expert point of view, what's your take?
Well, I think there's been a lot of, rumors and fake news going around, not only for 5G, but other fake news about COVID-19. And one of them is, of course, like you mentioned, the 5G, where people are saying, the rays from 5G or the network is a cause of COVID-19 and so forth. And I think that is really not right, because technology in and by itself, you may know that any any technology before it's adapted goes through a very vigorous, test by ITU, which is the International Telecommunication Union, to look at issues to ascertain about how hazardous is it to human beings and generally nature. And you will be informed that there is no way an institution like International Telecommunication, which has membership from all these countries, would have allowed a situation where we have a technology that will ruin the lives of nature, birds and animals and even human beings. And therefore, I think even as we roll out, I think that also calls for regulators around the world that even as we roll out new technology, there is an important aspect of sensitizing the citizen on what kind of technology are we rolling out and what are the effects of that, what that technology will offer and what that technology will offer in terms of the benefit of that technology, so that somebody, not somebody outside. Like the other day, I think I saw a clip of a very well-meaning but misguided preacher telling his congregant that 5G means that you're going to get, I think, something like 666 and satanic whatever. And I was like, no, this is the wrong information. So I think we get a lot of this, and I think I think the regulator at one point had put on an advert saying that in the rejoinder of that, and saying that this is not real and this is the situation. So I think even before we talk about rolling out, I think there would be a very important aspect of educating the public of what this 5G is all about, so that they also feel safe and trust the technology before they use it.
Mm-hmm. Now, the current pandemic has created vast opportunities for the ICT sector. Clearly, we are having this interview on Zoom, this platform. The future of ICT post-COVID, the interventions, the inventions, what are they? Where are the opportunities?
Well, I think this challenge of COVID-19 has taught us a lot of things. One of the things that we have seen is that because of work from home and because of schooling that has to be done from home, a lot of impact. It has created a lot of impact on the bandwidth that people are using, and therefore operators are really have to come out and up their game in terms of providing enough bandwidth that people would use in the schools and also as they work from home. But it also has created a lot of, may I say, opportunity, however bad, for people or criminals, cyber criminals, and other actors who are using this COVID-19 crisis to launch social engineering attacks and individuals who are facing online threats. And even our students and pupils who are learning online, there's a lot of risk on what sites they would be going on and all that. But overall, what the opportunity that COVID-19 presents for us is enormous. One is it has given us the opportunity to develop innovative ways of going around this COVID-19, especially now as we can experience the Zoom technology uptake is so high. I am also very glad to have seen the other day that we have our homemade, virtual meeting platform called Gumzo, developed locally, and that, I think, for me, as an opportunity which has come with this epidemic. We also have opportunity in terms of development of contact tracing application, and we have seen a lot of application around that. You may be aware, or you may not be aware, on this AFIA record that was launched just last month, and now have partnered with Telecom Kenya to roll out this AFIA record contact tracing application to counties to be able to help the government manage COVID-19. You'll also have seen, and I think yesterday from the CS of Health, Kagwe, ICT enabling, real data for that have been accumulated, counts of the different counties, and also projecting and having a visualization of data on what is expected moving forward. And this has been a great movement going, and also a lot of opportunities that we see coming with this. And you see, the government also the other day have created what we call COVID-19 ICT committee, which one of the responsibility is to look at calls. The other day they put a call to kind of ask innovators on what they are doing in terms of managing COVID-19, and therefore opportunities for innovators to present their innovation for promotion by government.
Clearly, the pandemic has created different opportunities for the ICT subsector. But now let's look at how we can incorporate ICT, especially in agriculture. Interventions to support agriculture. We pride ourselves as an agriculture-driven economy, and how can we marry now ICT into agriculture?
Yeah, there's a lot of initiatives that are going on to incorporate ICT in agriculture, and especially when you have policies around government on e-agriculture. One of the things that you realize that there has been a lot of innovation around removing, in order to promote the sale of our products, either online or to be able to enable farmers be able to have knowledge on some of these things that are happening around agriculture. For instance, we have systems now that can tell the farmers and project the rainfall, so that the farmer is able to have that knowledge on when to, to plant his crop and when to expect the rains. There we have, technology now of irrigation that are using AI, artificial intelligence, to be able to tell, and at time to be able to tell when to spray the crops and when not to spray crop. We have, apps that now promote to help farmers to sell directly their product, and they are cutting the loop for the middlemen who take a lot of money from the farmers. So there are a lot of initiative around agriculture, but this should also be promoted by government policies that promote the use of ICT in agriculture. So the development opportunities, even for young people now, to come up with innovative ways of looking at how then to help farmers in terms of their ecosystem of agriculture and farming.
Now, as we come to a close, there's been a question about data usage. How safe is our data out there, especially now that government, like contact tracing? So usage of data, how safe is personal data in this era?
You are aware that recently the Kenya, the president put into law the data protection law, and that law specify what data can be used and what data cannot be reused and so forth. But having said that, you realize that health data is very critical, because health data is one which is prone to be used in reused in either research or other areas like that. And therefore, first of all, we have a legal mechanism that protects and outlines how data can be used either in public and how that data can be stored. But over the years, we are also encouraging that even with the legal document, I think the document may not be as good if it's just stored. I think the public needs to know what is the context of the email, so that they are aware of what kind of data what kind of data they should be able to give and how that data is protected. Because like every day we give data to government, every day we give data to hospitals, and as an individual, as a citizen, we are not very sure how that data is kept or how safe that data is kept. So I think for me, one of the things the government should do deliberately is to try and empower the citizen to know what is the content of that data protection. And when they know, then they are able to be armed to know that if I give government my data, I am assured that it is safe. Or if I give data to anybody, I'm assured it's safe. Because people give data every day. I mean, if you are registering into Facebook, if you're registering into Google, Gmail, and all that, you're giving out your data. People need to know at what point am I able to at what point am I able to safeguard myself so that I just don't give out data for anybody anywhere. Recently, I think somebody was sharing with me the way the apps that are for shopping are coming up, and this was for Carrefour, where he says that if you use that, the app, it will then tell it'll do two things or three things. One, it takes a record of the things you buy and keeps the records of the things you buy, so that anytime you go back to the supermarket, it already assumes that you are going to buy certain things. It also takes record on where you live, depending on the proximity of the branch that you go to. So you see, every day we're giving up data. You're not sure. My opinion would be that government should take an initiative of educating the citizen on the context of that data protection, so that the citizens are aware and be able to know how to protect themselves first before giving out data.
Citizens need to be aware about the policies that have been laid out to safeguard their data. Thank you very much, Nixon Mageka there, who's a technology and data policy, public policy expert, taking time to come in the conversation and talk about the issues of universal service of coverage of ICT, as well as the rollout of 5G and what that portends for the ICT infrastructure. Now, Ram, I don't know what's your take about the issue of use of data. Use of data. How safe is your data? And remember, you go everywhere, you leave a digital footprint. Have you secured your data? What do you think?
Well, I think when it comes to that, we are on the ground, in the process of securing that. Well, I always have my phone with me. I always have my iPad, but we don't.
Well, it seems your sound is also not as good, though we are saying we're ready to roll out in as far as 5G is concerned. But hey, the issue about data, where it's quite a thin line, even with the current policies. When does my personal data, is useful to government, But experts, they have told us that everyone leaves a digital footprint in this 21st century, and that is not going to change as we go into smart technology going forward. So I don't know, especially the use of social media platforms, Ram. What's your take?
Well, I was saying earlier that most of us use our phones. I normally have my phone and my other gadgets that I use, and most of them, actually all of them, we end up using data and the internet. But now, I feel we are in the process. We are having that journey that started, and we're in the process of securing our data as a nation. And each and every one of us needs to, be tech savvy in a way to be able to understand technology and its impact in the economy. And I'm aware that it was a week ago, if I'm not wrong, where we had ICT CS Joe Musheru, who said that there is a new temporary data center that will further enhance the country's attractiveness for multinationals as a preferred regional data service hub. So Kenya, so far, is set to enhance its own capacity when it comes to the digital economy. But as a nation, we are in the process, so looking forward to greater things as we look forward to seeing what the Cabinet Secretary, Joe Musheru, is yet to give us or update us in terms of that. You mentioned social media. there have been lots of discussions in regards to cyberbullying and how we can protect ourselves, our children, especially during this pandemic where people are at home. I remember it was you who had an interview in regards to that. You talked about cyberbullying and how we can be able to protect our children during this pandemic. Yes, we are at a season where there is easy access of internet data, and we need to also be aware that we need to secure what we have access to in a way that we protect our children and our family from being exposed to anything that might harm them. Remember, Kenya is developing, Africa is developing, but we are in the process. At some point, there will be misses, there will be hits, but we are on the way. So, Regina, I believe that, yes, the journey started, so far so good.
Very well, so just as we had informed you earlier, this is an interactive segment every day, Monday through Thursday, and we appreciate your feedback. So, Luke Mayo, Kwananda Cherono, Meshak Mwangi, Kipkurui, Amos Sigay from Bomet, Shanice J from Mombasa Bamburi, Kibet Karamcha from Iten, Kevo Chacha, yeah, we have a Kevo on board, Boniface Mwebi of Kisii, and Ted Kaburu of Rero. Thank you very much for having kept us company. Remember, we are not done. Yesterday, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics released a certain report, and that states that at least 90% of those who were absent from work, are not too sure when they will report to work. This is something we're going to be focusing on because this highlights on the plight of women, especially in business, who have been rendered, jobless during COVID-19, and what interventions they want put in place to ensure that they continue living healthy lives and continue taking care of their children and their families. We're going to be joined shortly by the chairperson of Women in Business, that is Mary Motoni, who's going to be joining us in a meeting here online to just tell us if the report indeed is the actual state of what is happening on ground, and if it is not, then what is the actual state, as well as looking at the way forward, given that now the FKA CEO Jacqueline Mugo is quoted saying that companies have continued to write to the Ministry of Labour, indicating their plans to lay off employees. So then what will this mean? Remember, government has also done a stimulus recovery, economy recovery kind of setup to just see which areas are going to be resilient, or rather remain resilient during COVID-19. The reason why we are having even some restaurants opened, and if I can paraphrase what CS Health, Mutahi Kagwe, had earlier on said, is that to just continue supporting the economy. And given the directive, the first directive was the closure of bars and restaurants, and now we have restaurants operating under the laid COVID-19 guidelines to support the economy. So do keep it right here. We encourage your feedback. My Twitter handle is @Manyara. I'm sure Ram Aguko, yours it's Ram Aguko on Twitter. Our official station handle is @KBC Channel 1 TV. Just want to remind you that we're live and we value your feedback.
As you talk about that, Regina, in terms of the survey that you've stated there, I was reading just to unfold some part of what that survey was saying. It was indicating that 30%, actually 30.5% specifically, of households in Kenya were unable to pay their rent. And as agreed, as the economic impact of the COVID-19 is hitting the families. So we have an indication of 21.5% of households who usually pay rent on due dates were unable to pay rent in the month of April, citing reduced or reduction in earnings. Now, when this data came through, we have to remember that we have the Federation of Kenya Employers, that is FKE, and they revealed that at least 342,300 jobs have been lost in the last 2 months. Get that number. The number of jobs that have been lost in the last 2 months are at least 342,300 jobs that have been lost in the last 2 months because of the COVID-19 pandemic. it continues to ravage the economy. It continues to lay havoc in different sectors. The FKE CEO, Jacqueline Mugo, revealed that companies continue to write to the Labor Ministry indicating that they have plans to lay off. These include 20 members of FKE.
Our reporter on the businesses, that is O'Brien Kimani, attended that particular function yesterday with the National Cabinet Secretary, CS there, Ukuri Yatani, when this report was being released, and filed a detailed report that also went further to just look at the deficit, the revenue collection deficit that is likely to drop by close to $500 billion shillings due to the economic slowdown as a domino effect of COVID-19. How about we look at that report?
A slowdown in business activity as a result of the COVID-19 induced trade and travel restrictions is expected to add more pressure on the Kenya Revenue Authority at a time when the country is facing mounting expenditure squeeze. The shortfall has been caused by reduced tax collection from workers and businesses. As of March this year, tax and appropriation in aid revenue stood at 1.33 trillion shillings, falling short of a 2019-2020 financial year 9-month target by 211 billion shillings.
In the next 3 years, our trajectory was showing that, we'll have near zero budget deficit. That was our desired point. And we are determined to go along that route because in the interest of this country, that we manage our own expenditure based on our own solutions, based on our revenue. But then, unfortunately, as we embarked on this, now we've been hit by this shock. Never planned for, never anticipated in any way, and therefore all the parameters and the assumptions that we put in place are now going to change. And it's on this basis that we expect low revenue from the areas that I've already cited earlier.
Treasury CS Ukuri Yatani says the drop is likely to be worse in the coming days. The below-target tax collections are also expected to drop further in the coming days after the government lowered various taxes to cushion Kenyans against negative impact of the coronavirus. President Uhuru Kenyatta assented to the Tax Law Amendments Bill 2020. The law exempts those earning less than 28,000 shillings from paying income tax, while those earning above these will benefit from pay-as-you-earn tax reduction of between 30 and 25%.
The activities within our own economy have seriously slowed down. Some actually grounded to a halt. If you look at tourism, the hotel industry, the general service industry, air transport, general transport has actually gone down. Then that means we are going to have less revenue, actually quite drastic drop in the revenue.
Speaking when he released a survey on the socio-economic impact of COVID-19 on Kenyan households, the Treasury CS has said Kenya is mulling over renegotiating its loan terms with lenders.
We are not very certain yet whether we are going to go for it because the accompanying conditions are a bit tough because we will not be expected to borrow during this period. And at the same time, we are holders of some of the loans which will not actually ideally be the amount that they are going to give concession for. So we are studying, we are not saying no, but we are studying and making sure that we tailor to our own convenience.
According to the survey, 21.5% of households in Kenya were unable to pay house rent in the month of April due to job losses. The report further says there has been a 51.7% increase in the cost of transport in the same period. O'Brien Kiman for Channel 1 Business.
Now that particular report sets the basis of our next interactive segment. Joining me this morning is the Chair of Women in Business Kenya, Madam Mary Muthoni, to just tell us, especially the figures that have said that the most affected during COVID-19 are women. Some of them with the report saying that, or rather the survey saying that they have been rendered economically inactive. Madam Muthoni, is that the situation on ground?
Thank you very much, Regina. And I would want to first thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. And to agree with your statement at this juncture, really, we have to say that most of the people who are being affected they may not be infected, but affected by COVID-19 are women. If you look at 70% globally, 70% of health workers are women. 60% of women's employment in the informal sector are women. What does that tell us? That most of what that means is most of the time when these women are in the informal sector, they can be dismissed at any time without warning. They can be, and they don't have any protection whatsoever. If you look at domestic violence again, it is on the rise with about 25% in some of the countries. So that tells you that most of the people who are affected by COVID-19 are women. With most of the schools closed right now and more children are at home, more women are responsible for taking care of the children at home. So really, that again explains as to why women are affected. In Nairobi's upmarket area, if you drive along the roads today, you'll find the so-called mama fua are more on the road vis-a-vis other times. It's because of the COVID times, because sometimes the households, they believe that they don't want to allow people from outside to come to their houses. And so to speak, Regina, women are more affected by COVID-19.
So from where you sit as a chair of the Women in Business organization, or rather umbrella, what are you doing to support women-led businesses during this time?
We are very keen into ensuring that they are marketing their businesses more online. And we have very many ways of marketing with all the medium of communication, especially on social media, ensuring that their products are being seen every other day, ensuring that they are buying and selling amongst themselves, because they can only be their customers, their own customers at this juncture during this COVID period. Ensuring that there's also strict in terms of delivery of the products, so that they do not infect or affect the people who they are delivering their products to. And also we are having a lot of Zoom meetings to ensure that we give them more information on what is happening during this time of COVID. If anything, if you have information, you're able to organize yourself. We also have trainings that are going to help them organize themselves and change ideas. For instance, some of the categories or some of the sectors are almost down completely. And the only thing somebody can do, you cannot wait until COVID is over so that you think of what to do. This is the time to think of how to be dynamic. And you can be dynamic in terms of changing the course. You see, those are some of the things that we are training the women. We are also very keen into pushing into preventive measures so that they don't get infected. For instance, we have partnered with Kenya Pipeline Company to ensure that we are distributing sanitizers to women in business in the market areas, because at the market level, that is where the infections are likely to start. And if they hit the marketplaces where we have the bottom of the pyramid, women at the marketplaces, it's going to be very bad for us. Again, those are the people we rely upon every other day. So
with the current measures that have been put in place by government, Madam Muthoni, what's your take, being a player within the business circle? Are you satisfied with the current government measures that have been put to stem or rather counter COVID-19?
I would say yes, and we can keep on improving because this is not something that was expected or anybody was expecting. So we are learning the ropes as we move, and we are learning from other areas what has happened before.
Now, we are expecting the budget presentation 2020-21 in the next few weeks. What are your expectations from a business point of view?
Sorry?
What are your expectations of the budget 2020-2021 that is just but a few weeks away?
Yes, I would expect to see a lot touched on the tax issues. I know there's a bit of it that has been touched on, but really we can go more because the SMEs right now, most of them are not making money at all. So I would expect that to see issues on tax being dealt with more deeply. I would also expect more support for the SMEs, and especially in terms of giving them business from the government. We already know that we already know that we have the 30% procurement rule that has been there, and if for sure we can be able to see more and more women, more and more youths who are getting engaged in business, and we pray that we stabilize faster so that we are able to trade.
Now, post-COVID-19, businesses, we are saying there's life after COVID-19. For women in business, what do you think, or what are you planning to do differently, especially because these times are going to change? Post-COVID, things will be a little bit different. So what are the things, what are your plans in future for women in business post-COVID?
To be very sincere, the very first thing is to ensure that the businesses are stabilizing and ensuring that the sectors are coming back to form, ensuring that they are back on track, ensuring that we are getting more market linkages, either with the inter-county, intra-county, and also international. We have plans to ensure that the stabilization of the businesses, the policies that are there are implemented, and we are able to push for more that are going to help the businesses to come to the fore. And of course, there's going to be a lot of mentorship courses to be given to the women in business, because again, if you do not give mentorship cases or mentorship courses to ensure that the women are figuring out on how to get out of the COVID situation that had been there. A lot of networking and partnerships to be introduced for the women in business. Already, I know there are bigger companies that have been holding hands with SMEs to give them markets, so to speak. For instance, we are in partnership with Bidco Africa to ensure that there are women who are in agriculture are able to plant soya, are able to do contractual farming, and they are they get direct markets, and their products to be bought by our partners. So, so to speak, more on groupings of sectors that can be able to bring back the women into form and be able to also link with other people who are doing like mind in their businesses.
As we come to a close, what is your take on the easing of restrictions, especially within the hospitality industry, the restaurants to be precise? What's your take?
As long as we are prone to getting infections, Regina, I am not sure that we should extend into having people move freely, because we are human beings, yes. We want the economy back, but to be very sincere, if it is a threat to our well-being and to our health, then it may not be worth it.
Very well said. Thank you very much, Mary Muthoni, there for making time to be with us and just highlighting the challenges and what opportunities are out there for women post-COVID-19. Thank you very much. Now, as we come to, thank you very much. Now, as we come to a close to the show this morning, want to give just a look at a snippet of a story that our reporter Alan prepared yesterday in regard to supporting small and medium enterprises there, where the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on COVID-19 situation is proposing that only tax-compliant micro and small enterprises get access to liquidity support mulled by the government as coronavirus pandemic fallout deepens. Here's the report.
According to the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on COVID-19 situation, MSMEs in trade, agriculture, tourism, retail remain the worst hit during the COVID-19 pandemic. In its 51st sitting with various stakeholders across the country, the committee recommends for the immediate operationalization of the MSED fund.
To support MSMEs to continue with their businesses during the pandemic, the government to hasten the planned liquidity support for small and medium-sized enterprises through credit to banks and other financial institutions, to further promote MSMEs, emphasis to be made to government agencies to procure available items from local funds as much as possible.
And with the expected release of liquidity support to small businesses, not all businesses stand to benefit.
We don't have to, get, direct money to pay their rent. Mr. Speaker, if we protect these businesses, especially in the hospitality sector and tourism sector, through such a wage subsidy fund, we will have affected very many Kenyans. And these businesses are able to demonstrate, one, they pay as you earn, they've been paying for their employees. They're able to demonstrate these have been our cash flows, these have been our turnovers. But during this period, they get at a very discounted rate this money from the banks, which they already have a relationship with, Mr. Speaker, will have done a great service to our country, Mr. Speaker.
In April, in a State of the Nation address, President Uhuru Kenyatta promised an SME credit guarantee scheme to exempt them from complex application procedures and collateral requirements against impact of economic and financial disruptions caused by COVID-19 pandemic.
Treasury reported to us that they were in a very high level or a very advanced stage with the our development partners to get money, a grant, and even some as concessionary loans around, at that point it was 120 billion, to cushion small businesses. Mr. Speaker, if this money is actually channeled through our lending institutions at concessional, very low rates.
At the same time, the committee recommended enhanced accountability and oversight over the COVID-19 Emergency Fund and other funds established in the national and county levels.
The National Treasury and the county treasuries to submit monthly income and expenditure reports to Parliament and the respective county assemblies. Community-level mentoring and evaluation frameworks should be also put in place to ensure proper oversight of emergency COVID-19 funds.
The Senate all called on county assemblies to resume in order to provide their oversight role in monitoring emergency expenses.
Observation that many accounting officers are taking advantage of the pandemic to do emergency procurement and to misuse funds related to sorting out the issue of COVID, Mr. Speaker. They must continue following the public procurement laws that we have, Mr. Speaker.
Kenya's GDP growth for 2020 is expected to decline to 3%, and if extreme shocks persist, growth is expected to go down further to 2.5% as global demand remains weak. The committee is further calling on local sourcing of PPE and masks to support local industries. Alan Aguko, Channel 1 Business.
Still keeping up with matters business is that the value of Kenya's top listed firms has shrunk to 1.6 trillion shillings this year to March compared to 2.1 trillion shillings registered last year, according to Africa's top 250 companies report. Now, in the latest ranking by South Africa's Africa Business magazine, that is, Safaricom is the most valuable company among East African listed companies, climbing to 10th position from 14th last year with a market capitalization of 1 trillion shillings. Equity Group Holdings, EABL, KCB Group ranked 82nd, 90th and 92nd respectively. Cooperative Bank is ranked at position 110. Kenya lost 3 companies in the ranking, dominated by South Africa and Egyptian firms, to register 11 companies. Well, now that brings a cup to just a recap what we were having earlier there, just focusing on the impact that COVID-19, or what we want to term as domino effect of COVID-19 and businesses, given the report that was presented yesterday by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics and handled there by the National Treasury, stating that at least 90% of persons who went on compulsory leave are not so sure that they will be going back to work as the effect of COVID-19 continues to bite. Ram?
All right, and that brings us to a close of this show right here on Good Morning Kenya. And as always, it has been a pleasure, and it is a pleasure having you all the way from the beginning till now. My name is Ram Aguko, and before I let you go, I would like to leave you with a word to think about. Do not fix your problems. Don't bother yourself in fixing your problem, but instead try fixing or changing how you think. Through that, you will fix your problems. God bless you. God bless the work of your hands.
In Kenya, the rapidly increasing population is constantly reducing the land acreage in the rural areas. This in turn is limiting the various agricultural options available for the farmers. In cognizance of this fact, the World Bank, through the Government of Kenya, is funding community-based organizations in alternative sources of livelihood and diet that require limited space and expertise to implement. The objective of the Natural Resources Management Project is to reduce the community's over-reliance on the natural resources around them. Towards this objective, the World Bank has funded several community-based organizations to start dairy goat rearing projects as a source of meat and highly nutritious milk. The dairy goat project is gaining popularity since the cost of rearing one dairy cow is enough to raise 6 dairy goats, making it an ideal enterprise for farmers with small land parcels. Several groups have had their proposals approved and funded after passing through all the stages of vetting. The groups include Kibuyu Village Self-Help Group in Nyandarua County, who are funded with a total of 883,000 shillings. Motito Dairy Goat Keepers in Kirinyaga County, who are funded with a total of 285,000 shillings. And Kwemenya Dairy Farmers Field School in Nyeri County, who are funded with 670,000 shillings.
Tulianza mradi huu mwezi wa 11, tukapatiwa pesa na NRM. Pesa hizo ni za kununua mbuzi 5 na ndume 1. Tunatarajia mengi kutoka kwake. Faida yake ni maziwa, ni nyama na tena manyoya yake.
The most preferred breeds are the Toggenburg and German Alpine breeds, which are certified and supplied by the Dairy Goat Association of Kenya to ensure only high-yielding varieties are supplied to farmers. However, unlike indigenous breeds, which are left to roam free and fend for themselves, dairy goats are zero-grazed, hence they require structures which will shield them from direct sunlight, wind and rainwater. The structures are constructed using locally available material, such as posts, wood and corrugated iron sheets for roofing. This ensures the structures allow in enough light and ventilation. The floor of the cages is raised and is constructed in a way that allows urine and manure drain and fall easily. This ensures cleaning is easy and the cages remain dry to prevent diseases.